An entitled father gets angry and furious with me after I refuse to give him my number, even going as far as getting up in my face when I tell him I'm not giving it to him, resulting in this guy getting banned from the location I worked at as a lifeguard, while also really freaking me out in the process. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm a 21-year-old female and I'm a lifeguard at a very known recreational center with many locations across America. So it's safe to say that if I said the company, you definitely would know them. We have people from all walks of life who come into our pool to work out, they do swim lessons, or just have fun. Generally speaking, we have very few issues with patrons because most of them have been coming in for years and know how the place works. Most people are receptive to rule changes and enforcement, but there's always that one set of parents who will complain very loudly that they think a rule is stupid. And sure, while it's annoying, it's not that big of a deal. But you know what is a big deal? It's the creepy people I have to deal with on a daily basis. Unfortunately, with my job, no matter what your gender is, people will flirt with you or make unwanted, sketchy remarks in your direction, if you know what I mean. There's a teenage boy who works with me that has had middle-aged women call him jailbait. At first, my job as a lifeguard at a resort, not the same location I'm talking about, I actually had a man say that I wasn't a lesbian and that instead I just haven't been with the right man yet. And you know what? At this job, I've now had a few comments made that are just really unfortunate. I've walked younger girls back to their cars because I want to make sure that they're safe. We're talking genuinely repulsive behavior, and something like that just happened this past week. I was guarding the pool while swim lessons were going on, and we closed our pool for said swim lessons to give the kids as much space as possible, so there was significantly less people than normal. One of my guards came to relieve me of my stand, and I walked the edge of the pool and scanned the water as my job entails. I stuck my tongue out to the little kids, as that's a habit of mine, and I bent over to pick up a toy on the ground. Well, when I bent over, I heard a loud whistle coming from one of the parents. Now, I'm wearing shorts, and they are pretty short shorts because it gets really hot in the pool area even though it's indoors. But it's nothing inappropriate at all, and that is very important. When I turned around, I saw this guy who was maybe 40 to 50 years old, and when I saw him, he was grinning at me like he was smooth. He then said to me, "Hey there, don't be dressing like that in front of the boys, they might get some ideas." And mind you, the oldest kids here are 8 years old. I then looked at him and I said, "Excuse me?" But this weirdo responded back by saying, "Oh, you gotta know what I mean." But I just said to him, "I don't think I do." He then responded back by saying, "Your butt is hanging out of your shorts, in front of kids no less, and you're sticking your tongue out? You're a bad girl, aren't you?" And after he said that, obviously I'm immediately uncomfortable and I try to brush it off. So I say to him, "Well, I'm within uniform protocol, and the swim instructors teaching your children are wearing even less." He then said to me, "Well, I'll forgive this behavior, if you give me your number." I then looked at him and I said, "I'm not allowed to give patrons numbers for personal reasons, I'm sorry." He then responded back, "Oh, come on, don't be difficult," but I said to him, "Sir, I have to continue watching the pool." After I said that, he started to get visibly heated that I'm not accepting his advances, and then he stands up and approaches me. Now, he is a bit taller than me, and part of me felt nervous if he was going to actually do anything, but he was far away from the other parents and we were close to the edge of the pool. Thankfully, we had gotten the attention of the swim instructors, and many of them are also lifeguards, so they were also watching what was going down with this weirdo. He then cornered me at the edge of the pool and asked me, "Okay, what's the real reason you don't want my number?" And it's here that I just responded back by saying, "I have a girlfriend, sir, I'm not interested." He then looked at me and said, "Girlfriend? Oh, you're one of those then." He then tried to grab my rescue tube that I had in my arms and yank me towards him. Now, thankfully, I had a tight grip on it and I pulled it back towards me, and it's here that this idiot stumbled forward and I stepped out of the way, all before he fell into the water. And dude, when I tell you it was a glorious thing to watch, it was absolutely glorious. His shirt puffed up like a muffin, it was hilarious. Now, the water wasn't that deep, it was maybe 4 feet deep, so he wasn't in any danger, but due to protocol, I jumped in after him and I made him grab my tube. And that's when he looked at me and I saw that his face was bright red with embarrassment and anger as I slowly dragged him over to the stairs to get out of the pool. And that's when an onslaught of insults started coming my way. He screamed every single terrible name you could think of, and then some. He even called me a few slurs just for good measure. He screamed that he was never going to come back here ever again, and that his son would never finish swim lessons because of me. But eventually, I just kind of tuned him out, so I don't remember all that he said. But eventually, my boss, who was one of the swim instructors, stepped in between me and the angry man and made me go file a report. And eventually, this guy got kicked out, and the mother was actually the one who had to come and pick up the son from the swim lessons. And I will be honest, the mom and the child were actually as sweet as can be. And she even came to me specifically to find me and apologize to me for her soon-to-be ex-husband's behavior. And she actually sat and talked to me about her relationship drama and that he had tried to do this multiple times times in their relationship, and now she was finally going through with the divorce. It's absolutely crazy, and I'm just so glad she's out of that relationship. It isn't all great though, because that report that I had to file took me literally 3 hours to do, and I would not recommend that. Like, it was miserable. So this is just your public service announcement to treat workers, no matter what they are doing, as people and not as objects of your desires, because getting treated like that at my job is not fun at all, and I definitely do not recommend it for anybody. Okay, holy crap, I don't know how this guy got away with that. I understand that he got like kicked out and stuff and he's not welcome back at that location, but dude, who in their right mind would treat someone like that? Like, that really is bizarre to me. I can't imagine feeling so emboldened and just so disgusting that you walk up to a woman like that and say, "Oh yeah, give me your number." Like, dude, get out of here, bro. You're married. What are we doing? You're seriously actively going out of your way to try and like hit on some woman who is half your age? Like, what is happening right now? That is so stupid. And it's like really gross. Like, I know I've met people like this where it's like, you really treat women like this? I don't know. I'm not trying to be like a white knight here, but I think it's pretty obvious that if you're married and you have kids at a swim lesson, you shouldn't be hitting on women and being like, "Oh wow, don't bend over like that around me." Like, that is incredibly cringy behavior and just gross, like seriously disgusting. So in my opinion, and a lot of other people have like mentioned this in the comments of this post, that you really need to like make a police report or something like that. I know I would if I was in that situation. Which, by the way, I've never been in that situation because I'm a guy. Like, I will never know the experience of being cornered by someone bigger than me and having them be like, "Oh, I want your number right now." Like, I don't know what that's like. That must be horrifying. So yeah, if I was in your shoes, I would be calling the cops, I'd get a report going, and I would do anything that it takes to make sure this guy doesn't bother me again. Because this really is some disgusting behavior that absolutely deserves to be punished. If you like Am I the Jerk and what we're doing over here, please check out Am I the Genius. It's going to be linked down below in the description. Just click and go ahead and subscribe to them. And also, if you have your own stories you want to submit, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you want to submit your own stories. We're reading them all the time and we're picking out the best ones, so trust me, we would love to hear what you have to say. Am I the jerk for refusing to be everybody's driver home after we all went out drinking, as I was literally the only sober one because I had to get home early for an appointment the next day? But now, after I said no to being volunteered for this, I'm now being painted to look like the bad guy in this scenario. And overall, it's really frustrating and it's put me in a very weird position. Here's what happened. Okay, so last Sunday, I had a day out with my old friends. We had a dinner and then we went out to a bar to play board games, and those who wanted could have a drink. Well, a day before our meeting, someone in the group chat asked how everyone's getting to the spot. I then wrote that I was driving myself because I live pretty far away and I had an appointment early next morning. And it's important to note that I didn't say I would be driving anybody home. I just said I'd be driving there and mentioned my appointment. In fact, at the bar, I only drank soda because I knew I was driving. Around midnight, one friend said to me, "Oh, it's good that you're driving everybody home tonight." And when he said this, I really thought he was joking. So I said to him, "I'm sorry, but I'm just driving myself." When I said that, it got really awkward. It turned out that a friend had told a few other people that I definitely wasn't drinking and I could drive everybody home because it's on my way anyways. But that was not true at all. Two of them lived in completely different directions. And if I were to drive everybody, it would take over an hour and a half for sure. I also had an early appointment in the morning, like I mentioned. They then started saying that ride shares are expensive now, their phones were almost dead, and I could at least help them out. But I said, well, I could wait with them while they called for rides, and I could take two of them who live pretty close to me, but I wouldn't be driving the whole group around town. I also politely explained the reasons why again. The friend who told everyone this got angry and said I was making her look stupid now. But I replied, well, you shouldn't have built a safety plan around someone who you didn't even ask first. In the end, I drove two friends home who live like maybe 5 minutes away from me, and I helped the others order ride shares and waited until the cars arrived. But now that friend says I ruined the end of the night, and I could have just helped out since I was sober anyways. To be honest, I would like to help them, but I had an early work appointment the next day, and I was a bit upset that my decision not to drink was turned into like a public service announcement without my consent. So am I really the jerk here? Because I'm still pissed off about this. Yeah, I personally hate when people try to like volunteer me for stuff that I definitely did not sign up for, and this situation is exactly that. You had one idiot who was like, "Oh yeah, they'll do it. It's not that big of a deal. They're not drinking on purpose. They're gonna give all of us a ride home." And it's like, dude, I don't want to go across town 5 times to get people home. That's really disrespectful of my time and just really disrespectful to expect that out of you without asking first. Like, dude, don't volunteer me for something. I don't want to do it. Like, if you do that, immediately my answer is always gonna be no. I don't care what it is. I don't care what kind of like charity it is or whatever kind of like help my expertise are going to give to the project. Like, I don't care anymore. Literally, I no longer care what it is because you volunteered me for it. So no, you're not the jerk. These people should have asked you ahead of time. And in fact, if they had any common sense in the first place, they would have taken like, oh, I don't know, 2 seconds to look at your message previously that said, oh, I've got an appointment in the morning and I can't drive anybody. Like, my God, critical thinking skills clearly are not very strong with that one friend who volunteered you. And if anybody's the jerk in this situation, it's your stupid friend who put her foot in her mouth. Am I the jerk for demanding my parking permit back after my roommate literally gave it to her friend when I desperately needed it? Because now she's claiming that I embarrassed her even though she literally did this to herself. And now I just don't know what to do about this. Okay, to start things out, I live with a roommate in an apartment complex where parking is strictly permit only. Each apartment gets 2 permits, one for me and one for her. If the car is parked in the resident lot during the day or even at night without a permit, it really can get towed. This isn't just empty threats, and cars have been towed here before. Like, I've seen it happen. My permit is usually in a small tray by the door because I sometimes switch it between my car and my work rental. Well, last Saturday, I came home after my shift and I couldn't find the permit. At first, I thought I dropped it in the car, but then I texted my roommate to ask if she had seen it. She then replied that she gave it to her friend for the night. And holy crap, I was shocked. I asked why she gave away my permit specifically and why she didn't text me first. But she said she thought I'd be staying at my parents' place overnight as usual, while also saying, well, the permit was just laying there, and I already used mine for my car. But it's like, dude, I hadn't even told her I wouldn't be home, and why does she take something that's not hers? I then told her that she had to return the permit right away, but she replied to me that they had already left for dinner downtown, and it would be super awkward to ask her to come back. Then she suggested I park at the grocery store until morning, but you know what? I refused. Drunk people are usually passing there and can easily hit a car. I told her I wouldn't risk my car because she had like disposed of my property without asking. In the end, they came back 40 minutes later. They handed over the permit and looked annoyed. And I said sorry. I explained why I needed that permit and that my roommate had handed it over without even asking me first. Well, my roommate now is saying that I'd made a big deal out of a small favor and that I humiliated her in front of a good friend. Now, sure, maybe I could have thought of a different option, but it really bothers me that my parking permit and my risk of getting towed or smashed into suddenly became something that she could do with as she pleased, simply because she decided I wouldn't be there. So am I really the jerk here? Because I don't know what to make of this anymore. Okay, what your roommate did was very selfish. Because dude, that is a stupid move to make. She had no right to take that stupid parking pass. Like, you need that, dude. Otherwise you're gonna get towed. Like, obviously that's a serious threat. So for her to take that and leave you high and dry and then be like, oh, go park in the grocery store lot, that's what you can do. Like, no, I'm not doing that. How about you give me my property and we won't have any problems. Also, if I were you, I would probably put all of my belongings under lock and key because I guarantee you she's rifled through your stuff more than once. Because listen, if she's really comfortable enough to take your parking permit and give it to her friend, someone you don't even know, and use it without your permission, then bro, she's probably gone through all your crap. She might have even stolen stuff from you. Like, who knows, man? Like, I don't know. I would be very suspicious of her until the end of the lease where I find another roommate or I move out, because this is just messed up. This is really toxic. And also, the fact that she's trying to be like, wow, you embarrassed me in front of my good friend. But it's like, no, dude, you embarrassed yourself. I got nothing to do with it. Leave me alone. What a crazy jump in logic. Like, absolutely not. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. Your roommate had no right to do that. And any kind of weird, vague justification from her is just completely uncalled for. Am I the jerk for being upset with my boyfriend after he invited his friends on our romantic getaway? Because now it seems like everything's been ruined and I seriously just don't know what to do anymore. Here's currently what's happening. Okay, so my boyfriend and I have been together for quite a while, but lately we've been kind of arguing a lot. To try and save our relationship and get some quality time together, we decided to book a beach trip just for the two of us. This trip was incredibly important to me. I pictured a romantic getaway with just the two of us, a fresh environment, time together without outsiders, and a chance to finally feel like a normal couple again. By the way, initially I wanted to invite my friend and her boyfriend because we've been planning a joint trip for ages. beverages, but my boyfriend said he didn't want any company, insisting that this trip should be just the two of us. And you know what? I agreed, even though I was a bit disappointed. But guess what? Literally the day before our flight, I accidentally found out that people were coming with us. And it's not just some random acquaintances. It's a couple he hangs out with constantly anyways. What really hurts the most is that he didn't even bother to discuss it with me beforehand. Instead, he just stated it as a fact. When I got upset, he started making excuses, saying that he accidentally sent them our itinerary, they liked the price, and decided to book the exact same hotel themselves. He claims we will barely spend any time with them there and that I'm completely overreacting. But honestly, I find that really hard to believe. It also especially stings hard considering that when I wanted to invite my friends, he was strictly against it because he wanted a romantic getaway for the two of us. But now suddenly it's totally fine for his friends to come along. Like, what? This also really hurt me because I don't feel entirely comfortable around this crowd. I find it hard to connect with his friends' girlfriends, and he knows this perfectly well. So now, instead of looking forward to a relaxing vacation, I now feel incredibly anxious. Like I've been backed into a corner where I have to now pretend that everything's fine. I feel lied to and frankly a bit humiliated by these double standards. And now I seriously just don't know what to do. Okay, your boyfriend sucks, dude. Holy crap. He looks at you and says, no, I want it to just be the two of us. Let's have a romantic beach getaway. Let's do this. Only to then, like, in the same breath be like, oh, by the way, my friends are coming, but yours aren't. Sorry about that. Like, dude, this guy sucks. What are we talking about right now? Like, if I was in your shoes, I would definitely not go on this trip. Like, it's a matter of principle at this point. I would be so upset. I would be like, yeah, this is not worth my time. Have fun with your friends. I'm absolutely not going, and I'm gonna stay home and probably look for another relationship. Like, dude, what is this guy doing? This was like the one chance for you guys to connect. This was the one opportunity for you guys to, like, I don't know, once again reconvene and be a couple again. But he completely screwed it up, and now he's acting like you're the problem? Like, dude, I don't think so. Absolutely not. So yeah, your boyfriend sucks. He is absolutely the jerk here, and this is incredibly insulting because I know if I was in your shoes, I would also be really pissed off. Am I the jerk for telling my neighbor that people hate her and her family for the construction they've been doing on their house that has literally lasted for 7 months? Because now they're kind of pissed off at me for being so honest, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I have a neighbor who's been at their house for just over a year. For 7 months out of that year, they've had basically nonstop construction and work being done to their house. And my God, I have no idea what they could possibly be doing. The construction, by the way, is Monday through Saturday, starting at 8 o'clock in the morning. And sometimes even earlier than that. Not only is the construction itself loud, but the workers are loud too. They're always yelling and singing and playing music. And if you ask them to be quieter because it's 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, they retaliate and get louder. They throw stuff into people's gardens and physically enter those gardens to retrieve whatever they threw down. Their vans block the roads when people are trying to get to work and school. And they get really pissed off when asked to move them. Additionally, because our houses are attached, I'm experiencing physical symptoms to the work being done. Like the vibrations from the tools are giving me horrific migraines. I genuinely do not know what they could be doing that requires 7 months of continuous work, but it's not an extension, and all the work seems to be exterior. Well, a few days ago, the neighbor asked me why there's so much tension between her and the surrounding houses. And maybe I'm cruel, but I looked at her and I said, hey, you've had loud construction work at your house every day, literally for the past 7 months. People are tired. She then looked genuinely upset, but said, okay. Then her husband confronted me a few days ago and said I was being a jerk for getting mad at construction work. Because according to him, well, of course that stuff is loud. He then accused me of blaming his wife for the workers' behavior, which I wasn't, and said the house needs the work to be livable. He ended the conversation by saying he prays my house never needs construction work, which I honestly found kind of funny. So am I really the jerk here for like revealing why there's tension? Because I just don't know what else to do. Oh man, no, you're not the jerk. This sounds obnoxious. The closest thing I have to this is when I dealt with like construction on my street, and good lord, it was like all the time. These people were making noise constantly, it was obnoxious, and it would like make the whole house rattle. So I feel for the original poster, especially because it's like, holy crap, this is connected to your house. You guys share the same wall and they're making all this noise. Like, that would be so annoying. But holy crap, can we all just like agree for a second that the lady in this story who's like, why is everyone so upset? Like, I'm pretty sure we can all say unanimously that this lady's an idiot, right? Like, seriously, Karen, you really don't know why people hate you? You've been doing construction for 7 months. Plus, you clearly like hired people who want to stretch this out as long as possible. Like, good lord. Don't sit there and pretend like you don't know what's happening. Like, this is obviously like the results of your stupid actions. So no, you didn't do anything wrong. You're not the jerk, and I think these people need just a little bit of honesty if they want to know exactly how people feel. Am I the jerk for keeping a negative course review up for a product I bought after the instructor reached out to me asking that I remove it, as he was claiming I was ruining his income? Because after the fact, I'm kind of second guessing everything and I just don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So back in January, I paid about $60 for an online video editing course. The description said it covered cuts, color grading, audio mixing, and basically anything I would really need. I've been trying to learn properly for a while, and I figured a structured course would be better than just watching some random YouTube videos. But trust me, it wasn't really what was described. The first few modules were decent, like I will give it that. But around halfway through, it started to feel like the instructor was just talking through things without actually teaching them. There was a whole section on color grading that was mostly just him clicking around saying, "Oh, you develop an instinct for what to do eventually." And the audio on at least 4 videos was genuinely really difficult to follow. It was almost as if it was recorded in a different room, like it was that bad. Well, after it was all said and done, I just left 3 stars on the course. I wrote that the early modules were useful, but that the second half felt rushed, and that the audio really needed work. I didn't think that was harsh, and honestly, it was just what I thought. Well, the instructor messaged me 2 days later. He said that my review was affecting his income, and that I should have just come to him directly if I had problems. He then asked me to either take it down or change it to 4 stars specifically, which I thought was a really strange thing to ask. I then said I'd update the review if he fixed the audio sections, and at this point, he just sent me the same message again. Well, once it was all said and done, I didn't take it down. I don't know, 3 stars isn't just 1 star. I mean, I wasn't calling him a fraud, but he seemed genuinely upset, and now I keep second guessing whether I should have just messaged him first before posting anything. So am I the jerk here? Because I'm really starting to second guess pretty much all of this. No, you're not the jerk. This guy sucks. If you make a crappy product, why would you expect a good review? Seriously, this guy deserves those 3 stars. He gave out something that was complete garbage and nobody liked it. So it's yeah, you kind of deserve to get that bad review, dude. You gotta own it and live up to it, or at least fix what you're doing. And it's also hilarious that he comes to you and says, you need to change that to 4 stars. Almost completely dodging the fact that his product sucked. Yeah, if it was better, then I would have left a better review, dude. I think even a reasonable person, if it at least fit your needs, would be okay, I'll give it 5 stars, who cares? But you gotta go out of your way to leave a 3-star review. That is the actual review in my opinion. So no, you're not the jerk, and it sounds like this guy absolutely deserved this bad review. An entitled neighbor demands that I move my car from out in front of their house, as they claim I have no right to park there, and that if I do park there again, they're gonna report me to the authorities. So after receiving that letter, I not only took it personally, but I decided to get some revenge by not only happily getting the authorities involved, but also occupying the front of their house with as many cars as I could possibly get together. Here's what happened. Okay, about a month ago, I moved into a residential neighborhood, and it's important to note a few things as you read my story. My house does not have a driveway or garage, so I have to rely on street parking. This is not a gated or HOA governed area, and there are no signs, restrictions, permits whatsoever for street parking. This area is also not walking distance to anything but other houses, so anyone parking on the street is either a resident of the area or a visitor of a resident, which basically means there's no random people trying to find short-term parking. Now, it's a quiet neighborhood, so I can usually find street parking in front of or close by my house. However, there is one neighbor that lives 4 houses down that feels that they own the public sidewalk in front of their property and constantly puts down cones to block off space that would fit about 3 cars. Now, I refuse to give them the benefit of the doubt that they do this to save spots for themselves, because I take my dog on frequent walks and I've never seen them use these spots to park. Additionally, they have a long driveway that never has any cars in it and a detached garage, so they already have ample parking for their personal vehicles that I've never seen. On that note, I have literally never even seen these neighbors, other than occasionally seeing lights coming from their backyard during nighttime walks. I would probably assume that there's no one living there. Shades are always closed in the front windows, and I never see any inside lights on from the front. One day I drove home and there was no parking available except in front of their house. It was late and I didn't want to park a block away just because of this entitled house. So I simply moved a couple of their cones to the sidewalk and I parked my car. The next morning, I saw that they had moved the cones back to the street behind my car, which I had to move again to get my car out, meaning that they definitely noticed and acted upon my legal street parking. But you know what? I just shrugged it off. A week or so later, I couldn't find any parking again. So the exact same situation happened. I moved the cones and I parked my car. And what do you know it? The next day, I simply moved the cones they placed behind my car and I went about my day. Yesterday, I had the situation situation happen yet again, and as a side note, this is only the third time in a month that I've moved the cones to park there, and as I take my dog on a walk this morning, I see a note on my windshield. It's not even handwritten, and it's some kind of like printed note. It says the following: "This plate number has been turned into the parking enforcement. We encourage you to park in front of your own residence for the consideration of your neighbors." Well, needless to say, this note really pissed me off. First of all, if you believe in consideration of your neighbors, then you shouldn't be blocking access to public parking spots where your neighbors can park their car. Secondly, now you're threatening me for parking legally. It's like, do you want to start this fight? Because I will make you pay for it. And honestly, that is exactly what I started to do. My first revenge is that I called parking enforcement myself, and I explained the situation, and the lady on the other end just laughed and said that my neighbors had no authority to give me any kind of notice like that, which I assumed to be the case. They also gave me a number to a Bureau of Street Services investigator who can come to take a look and then issue them a citation. Well, lucky for my neighbors, they are currently closed for the week as it is Friday afternoon, but trust me, I will be calling again on Monday morning. My second revenge is that I live with my girlfriend who has her car parked in front of our house. So you know what? I moved her car in front of the house with the cones to now make it two cars that they didn't want there. The added bonus is that she has a Tesla, so there will be cameras in case they try to do anything to either of our cars. Now, the potential third revenge is that if the citation situation doesn't happen or work out for whatever reason, I'm considering purchasing the ugliest, oldest, and cheapest car that I can find in my area and register it as a planned non-operational vehicle with a DMV and then keep it forever parked in front of their house. All things considered, I have no apparent reason why they wouldn't want to have anyone park in front of their house other than some simple aesthetic that they just want to maintain. They don't use the spots to park their own vehicles, and we would never have random people wanting to park there on a regular basis. But I'm honestly eager to see what happens because these people are absolutely out of their mind. Oh man, I can't stand people who act like this. The original poster states they live in Los Angeles, so literally there's no room for anyone as it is. So the fact that these people are like, oh yeah, we're gonna reserve all these spots in front of our house because we don't want people parked there. Like, that is so selfish and so messed up. They don't own the street. They can't just do that and get away with that. And I'm pretty sure this investigator is gonna have a field day with these people. So I know if I was in your shoes, I would be taking pictures of everything. I would save that letter and document it and take pictures of everything around you and really prove that these people are acting out of line, especially with them putting the cones right back around your cars. Like, are you kidding me right now? That is so weird. Like, seriously, get away from my car. Because in the end, I'm anticipating these people being proven wrong pretty much immediately because what they're doing is incredibly entitled. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for walking away when I was asked to apologize for something that I didn't do? Because right now I feel like I did something wrong. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, I used to be best friends with a guy who we will call Brad, as well as his girlfriend who we will call Diane. All three of us used to eat lunch together, along with a few other friends. I am usually very chatty and social, but my grandpa had been in the hospital the past few days, and I wasn't as chipper as I usually am. So when Diane asked me to go with her to throw something away, I said yes so I could explain the situation to her. And also for reference, this wasn't abnormal for us to leave the guys for a few minutes, as this was usually a chance for us to talk without them. When we were away from the guys, I apologized for not talking as much and explained how my grandfather was in the hospital. Well, she stopped me mid-sentence and said, "Do you like my shirt?" She was wearing one of those black shirts that was tie-dyed with a bleach heart, and when she said this, I was really confused. So I responded by saying, yeah, I guess. Can I get back to talking about my grandpa who's in the hospital now? She then proceeded to sigh before saying, I guess. By this point, we had finally gotten back to Brad and the rest of the group, and they saw we were obviously upset and asked what had happened. Before we could explain, Diane had stormed off, leaving me to explain the situation. After I had said what had happened, Brad asked me, well, why can't you just say I'm sorry? It's important to note that until this point, I had been apologizing to Diane no matter what, if I was wrong or not, and I did this simply because I thought it was better than fighting. However, after some much-needed therapy, I decided to stop doing that and had determined that I shouldn't have to always apologize when things aren't my fault. After he said this, I was almost in tears because I felt like all those months of progress were going down the drain, and this is where I might be the jerk. Instead of explaining why I was upset, just like Diane, I stormed away without explaining or clearing things up. As I walked away, I could hear Brad telling his friend, wait, what did I do? Which just made me more upset. So am I the jerk for walking away instead of explaining why I was upset? Because right now I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong. Okay, I don't think you're the jerk, but I also think your friends are incredibly immature. Seriously, Diane storms off when you're about to be like, oh, I'm upset about my grandfather stepfather, it's not a big deal. Like, she literally is just super insensitive and doesn't care about your family in the slightest. And neither does Brad. Like, both of them really suck in my opinion. And the fact that Brad would even be like, oh, well, why didn't you apologize to Diane? Like, that kind of behavior is super toxic and I can't stand that. Because you know what? I am a firm believer that you never have to apologize for something you didn't do. If it's not my fault and I had nothing to do with it, then congratulations, you are never getting an apology out of me. Why would you? That doesn't make any sense. It's idiotic and honestly, it sets a really bad precedent. So no, you're not the jerk for walking away because these people just don't sound like good friends in the slightest. And I really think that you can find better people than them. My entitled owner and employees claim that I'm not doing my job properly and that I need to work the front desk with all the other girls. But despite the fact that I manage a day spa and have a lot of other responsibilities, I'm getting paid a lot of money at a salary level for a job that I literally did not sign up for. Here's what happened. Okay, so I manage a day spa of about 25 employees, 4 receptionists, 2 phone lines, about 60 appointments per day, and we're open 7 days a week for about 10 hours each day. Now, at the time of this story, the receptionists have become disgruntled that I don't help them with their front desk duties as much as they seemingly feel that I should. And when I say as much as they think I should, what I mean is that they think I should be there 7 days a week from open to close doing their job side by side with them. But in reality, what they're really implying is that they want me to do it for them. Not only did they not even try to address this with me, but they went over my head and directly to the owner, who didn't even refer them back to me so that we could try to come up to some sort of understanding together. And instead of the owner letting them know I do a lot of other things, even when I'm not there to operate the business, and reminding them I have a lot of other employees and responsibilities to handle, he instead took their side, yelled at me for 4 hours, and then the next day yelled at me again in front of the one complaining to him for another hour. He showed these girls his support and offered me none, and ultimately said that I need to be up there working with them instead of handling other things around the spa. His reasoning is that they need help, and I should be at the desk at all times because I'm the face of the company. One of the girls told him, in front of me mind you, that all I do is laundry, but it's a day spa, so there is a lot of laundry that accumulates very, very quickly, and there's no one else to do it. It technically is a receptionist duty, and I tried to alleviate as much off of the receptionist as I could, so that is something that I've taken full accountability for except on my days off. When the owner tells me that I need to be up at the front, answering phones with the receptionist on duty, and that I need to arrive earlier to do this, you know, instead of him paying a second receptionist because he's too cheap and greedy to do so, I said to him, you do not pay me to answer phones. You pay me to operate your business and keep things running smoothly in your absence. Well, his response was that he also doesn't pay me to do laundry, and that's what I do all the time when I'm here. And it's like, oh really? That's all I do? Yeah, okay buddy. This all took place about 3 days ago, and since then I do not leave the front desk, except maybe to go to the bathroom one time during my shift, despite the fact that I'm salary, so technically I don't have a shift. I just work a ton of hours, of course, with no extra compensation. But I have not touched the laundry since this conversation, and while it is kind of getting done, it's not getting done properly or efficiently, and it is starting to pile up. And we're talking both dirty laundry overflowing the baskets and clean unfolded laundry piling up on all the massage tables. When I walk past the nonsense, I just glance over and keep it moving. It is hard for me to leave things undone because I do have a strong work ethic, but since he doesn't pay me to do laundry and has made it clear he would rather overpay me to answer phones, you know, while they scroll their social media and stare into dead space, and instead of me actually running the business, that's exactly what I'm doing. And you know what? I'm curious how long it will take him before he tries to come back and tell me I'm not doing my job because the laundry is in shambles. Because at that point, I'll say something like, but sir, I'm doing exactly what you told me to do, or should I say exactly what my own employees have told me I need to be doing, and you agreed with them. At this point, I feel like they think I'm their employee because of how he handled it. The root of the problem is that they only get paid $15 an hour, and it's a high volume place, so the workload is intense, and I've never denied that. I do help them often, and I've always gone to bat for them, asking him to pay them more and begging him to budget for 2 people to be at the front desk during the busiest hours, as it certainly is a 2-person job. But I did not sign up or accept the position of a receptionist. I'm 48 and these girls are in their 20s. I will help when I can, but I'm the manager and there are a lot of things I have to prioritize. But you know what? If he wants to pay me far more to do the same job others are paid $15 an hour to do, then who am I to argue? As the business starts to fall apart since I'm not handling other things anymore, which by the way, how can I, when I have to perform their job with them the whole time, he will start to realize how much I was in fact doing when he and his receptionist team thought that I was only doing laundry all day. Okay, I really like this mentality, but I don't think it's gonna last, because I don't think he's gonna come back to you begging for you to fix the problems. If anything, he'll he'll probably just fire you and get someone else for cheaper and probably save a bunch of money while also not getting a second receptionist at the front desk during the busy hours. Like, I really only see this as a net negative, and I don't think this is going to go well for you. So in my opinion, if I was in your job, I would be finding another job. And sure, you're getting paid really well to be a receptionist for now, but I guarantee you that could change at the drop of a hat, especially with an owner who's so stupid they don't realize what they're doing. So I think it's in your best interest to find something else, because this guy could easily flip the table on you in a heartbeat. I'm considering breaking up with my girlfriend after she catfished me as a prank on Instagram, because after she impersonated one of my female coworkers under the guise that she would somehow catch me cheating, I now feel completely betrayed, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So me and my girlfriend have been together for 2 years. I always thought she was very sweet and kind, and I really appreciate how much she loves me, and while she sometimes got a little jealous, I didn't think it was a big deal. Deep down, maybe I even enjoyed being doted on like that. It made me feel really attractive, which I never really felt like I was. Recently, we attended a work event organized by my company, and we met one of my coworkers there. She works at a different branch, and we hardly ever talk outside of work emails and calls, but we get along well enough. This event was my girlfriend's first and only time meeting this coworker. On the way back from the event, and the following day, my girlfriend was acting a little weird. She kept asking me about a work wife, and asking if I thought my coworker was pretty and other stuff about her. I knew my girlfriend could get kinda jealous, and I did my best to calm her down. No, that woman isn't my work wife. I don't follow her on any socials. I don't even have her personal phone number. I don't think she's more beautiful than my girlfriend, and I'm happy with my girlfriend, etc. and so on. Eventually, she seemed to relax and things got back to normal. Well, a few weeks later, out of nowhere, I got a follow request on Instagram from my coworker, and it's important to note that my account is on private. I approved the request and I followed her back as her account was also private. That account was almost nothing but a few pictures of her in swimsuits uploaded very recently. And at the time, I didn't really check, and I honestly didn't even scroll her account at all. It didn't look like anything overtly scandalous, just normal vacation pictures, but there was nothing but vacation pictures. It seemed weird, but I didn't really care. Then a few days later, she direct messaged me on Instagram. It was just small talk and I replied, but it wasn't flirty or anything like that in my opinion. She kept reaching out every few days, and eventually it did seem like it kinda got flirty. I told her I felt this was inappropriate and that I was in a relationship, and I would appreciate it if we kept things professional, which she seemed okay with. Well, my girlfriend seemed extra affectionate the days after that, and while I didn't suspect anything in real time, you can all probably see exactly where this is going. Still, at the time, I was happy, and my girlfriend even seemed to be better regarding her jealousy. But then, last week, I got a follow recommendation on my Instagram, and it was my coworker's real account. This one wasn't private, and was just a normal Instagram account, and just by looking through it, that was where those swimsuit pictures came from. Here they were, just a part of her normal Instagram account, which contained mostly normal pictures, and not just ones with her in a swimsuit like the other account had. It was then that I put two and two together. Before confronting my girlfriend, I talked to that coworker at work, and I asked her for her Instagram account, and she gave me her normal one, which I followed. And indeed, she gave me no indication that we ever interacted on Instagram before. So it became clear I was being catfished. I then confronted my girlfriend, and at first when I was trying to be subtle, she denied everything outright. Then she shifted to gaslighting me about it and saying that it was just a prank, or she would say that it was a test, or that because she was cheated on before, she just needed to know that she could trust me. I told her that her being able to trust me was great, but how am I supposed to trust her now? She said that made no sense, and kept deflecting no matter how hard I tried to explain, going so far as to question how I even knew it was her if I wasn't cheating on her with my coworker. I told her that this was unfair and manipulative, and that I needed some time, and I just went home. She's been texting me and calling me ever since, saying that I'm ruining a great relationship over nothing, that I'm overreacting, and that when I finally realize how much she loves me, it might be too late, and it's not fair for me to throw away everything we've built over my stupid coworker. But to me, that just feels incredibly manipulative, and like she doesn't get what she did wrong at all. So I'm conflicted between wanting to just cut and run, or giving it another go. After all, we have been happy together for 2 years, but also, can I trust that we can rebuild something after this? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Oh wow, your girlfriend literally decided to go behind your back and catfish you, and then still somehow blame it on you. Like she's literally trying to be like, oh, this is nothing, you're ruining our relationship. But it's like, no lady, you did that. You're the one that did that the second you tried to catfish your boyfriend. This is so stupid, it's not even funny. If anyone's insecure and weird about this relationship, it's your girlfriend. Like this is the worst case of self-sabotaging I've ever seen in my life. And worst of all, it's completely self-inflicted. She literally did this to herself for no good reason reason other than her own insecurity and paranoia. Like, you should not have to be tested like that in any way, shape, or form, because I know that would not sit well with me at all. I would be questioning everything just like the original poster is, because it would immediately make me wonder if this is really someone I want to stay with. Is this really the person I want to spend the rest of my life with, or even get married to? And she even did this without any care of like consequences or anything like that. Like, screw that, you could have lost your job over this. Because in my opinion, anyone who has to test their partner's loyalty by making fake accounts just to like instigate some kind of cheating situation, in my opinion, probably should not be in a relationship in the first place. You're clearly not in a healthy place in life, and this is not fair for the original poster or other people who go through this. So no, you're not the jerk here, and honestly, I think you can do a lot better than your current girlfriend, because her actions, in my opinion, are just a little too sketchy. Am I the jerk for telling my autistic brother to stop correcting me on something that I know more than him about? Because right now, my mom says that I was out of line, but at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 23-year-old female, and I have a bachelor's degree in psychology. And psychology also happens to be my 14-year-old autistic brother's special interest. I was visiting my family this past week, and my brother and I have been chatting about different interesting psychology things a lot. However, he likes to use social media as his prime source of information, which is fine, as long as you do more research before believing and repeating things. But he tends to just believe anything that he hears without fact-checking, especially if it's something that intrigues him. So it happened multiple times, where he would throw me a fun fact that was false, or he would correct me on something that I was telling him about with misinformation that was just not true. Now, I'd always been super gentle correcting him and reminding him to double check his information. Even though I did find it quite annoying, I never was harsh with him at all. But last night at the dinner table, we were talking about the structures of the brain and how psychology and medical things overlap. The conversation was mainly between my mother and I, as she's a doctor and could speak for the medical part of this, while my brother was just tuning in. We were talking about strokes and how it affects the brain, and I began explaining to my father about the left and right brain and how they control opposite sides of the body, when my brother stopped me to say that I was wrong and that it was the opposite way. I once again gently corrected him, but he was insistent that he was correct. I then reminded him that I was the one with the degree in this topic, and then he dropped it. Later after dinner, my parents, my brother, and I were all in the living room watching a movie that was on TV. During one of the commercial breaks, my brother brought up the left and right brain thing again, going on about how I was supposedly incorrect. I was really just done with the topic, and I was getting a little tired of being constantly corrected with misinformation. And I do not think that I said this in any aggressive or rude way, but my exact words were to say to him, I'd really appreciate it if you'd quit correcting me when you're incorrect. Your source of information is random people on the internet. My sources are textbooks, experimental documentation, and the DSM-5. My brother had then stormed off to his room, upset by what I had said, and my mother told me that I should have just let him have his way because he's autistic and just a kid, and in no way was I trying to attack my brother or be selfish and full of myself. I genuinely just wanted him to have the correct information, but the constant correcting began to get on my nerves just a little bit. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. No, you are not the jerk. Your brother is literally wrong. He's spouting off wrong information all because he read it on the internet instead of getting it from like a verified source. And I don't know about you, but that's something that absolutely needs to be corrected. And also, why should your brother get a pass just because he's autistic? Like, in my opinion, that's an awful excuse, and that just doesn't stand. There's no reason that should be used as some kind of like get out of jail free card, because that doesn't help your brother in the slightest. Because in my opinion, letting him get his way is just not going to do him any favors. And I think you did the right thing by patiently and kindly telling him that you didn't want to talk about it and that he needs to get better sources than social media. An entitled Karen takes all the good seats at a cafe, as she literally goes on a power trip and takes way more seats than she and her daughter are ever going to use. But thankfully, karma came their way in the form of a stubborn couple who wasn't willing to take her crap, resulting in one of the funniest interactions I've ever seen in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so my local Barnes & Nobles in Texas is not that large. The cafe has seating for about 30 people tops, with most of those at 6 to 7 tables away from the window. We also only have one counter across from the barista station, with seats for about 4 people. The counter is immediately to the left as soon as you enter the cafe area. These are close to the window, and they are coveted seats if you can't get a table alongside the window. Being a Barnes & Noble nerd, I always know when to show up and get a good table close to the windows. Well, I managed to snag one of those tables as always, with the window to my right, the counter seating directly in front of me, and the register and serving area to my right. I was happy to get a window side table, as I often cannot, and not have to sit at the counter with its 4 stools. As I was enjoying my coffee and magazines, I noticed that the 4 stools at the counter were only half occupied. There was a tallish 50-something-year-old blonde woman and her 17-year-old daughter 2 stools away. The trouble is, they had plopped their clothing and backpacks on the other stools as some way of taking up 4 stools instead of the 2 that they needed. The daughter was perusing the store and wasn't even using her seat, but the mom had them taken with backpacks and a purse to save them. I actually saw a couple come in and were denied a seat at the counter due to the mom telling them that those seats were occupied. And when the daughter eventually returned, mom seemed to celebrate her victory with her. After the second time I saw this happen, I put away my magazine and I decided to have some fun. When a third couple came in and were driven away by this Karen, I smiled and waved them over. I offered them to take my seat, and for reference, I was taking up 1 seat at a 4-man table, and after they sat down, I explained to them what was going on. They were a little put out by being denied a decent seat at the counter, and it was then that they decided to take my advice. So they walked 10 feet back to the counter and they pulled out the stools, only to be told by mom that those seats were taken. But you know what? They plopped their butts in the seats anyways, and they told this Karen that they'd be happy to move when the owner returned. Well, the mom indignantly took the backpacks and the purse from the left 2 seats and pouted for a while just looking around. The daughter came back and a smallish argument ensued, and this stubborn couple offered to move when the others came by to reclaim their seats. Well, this entitled Karen was very put out and was angry that her scam was not working. She wound up putting both backpacks and daughter's purses on the other 2 seats, and this couple ignored her and just enjoyed their coffee. And naturally, she left very soon after that. After that, this stubborn couple turned around and gave me a smile with a thumbs up. And honestly, I was so glad to witness this happening. Okay, I love when stuff like this happens because I can't stand when people save the good seats for themselves only to not use them. If they had someone else coming along, I would completely understand, but it seems like they just wanted like elbow room, even though I'm assuming there was probably plenty of space by those spots. So they were just being selfish, like that's all this comes down to. They didn't want to share their seats with anybody else and they wanted it all for themselves. And that's not fair. Like, I don't care how you stretch it, that is not fair for anybody else coming in. So honestly, I love the fact that you kind of coordinated this in a roundabout way, because this Karen and her daughter absolutely deserved it. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for handing over my dad's tax returns over to my mom just to help her extend her alimony with her husband? Because right now my dad says I breached his privacy, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 37-year-old male and I spent most of my adult life working for my parents' company. It's a small but successful firm that does litigation support, architectural design, project management, and engineering consulting. Our whole family helped build it. After school, weekends, holidays, you name it, we were there. And I started working there full-time right after high school. My parents had a rocky marriage, mostly due to my father's chronic infidelity. He used the company's resources to carry on multiple affairs and even hired ladies of the night for himself and for his clients, if you know what I mean. When my parents divorced in 2011, all of this came out. My sister and I sided with our mother, while our older half-brother, who is my mom's son from a previous marriage, took our father's side. Fast forward, and a couple of years later, I split with my son's mother. My father then hired a lawyer for her, and not just any lawyer, but the wife of a longtime client of his who had also been a close confidant during his divorce. This wife and husband legal team took my custody case all the way to trial. During the trial, it had came out that they had been given my privileged medical records by my father. The judge admonished the attorney but didn't pursue any serious disciplinary action. Ultimately, we ended up with split custody after they racked up over $140,000 in legal fees. I then ended up suing my father over the breach of my privacy, and after 2 years of litigation, I dropped the case because my sister convinced me to, all for the sake of our mom. In exchange, my father agreed he would help her out as she aged and dealt with health issues. Fast forward to now, and my father makes over $1.2 million a year and has completely cut my mom off from alimony. She has health problems and no other income. Recently, he left his tax returns open on my laptop, so I gave them to my mom so she could try to extend her alimony. Now, my father says I crossed a line and that I'm violating his privacy and being vindictive, but I feel like my dad's the one who broke trust first years ago. And just to be explicitly clear, my father handed the documents to me, and by doing so, he waived his privacy rights. The taxes show that his income has been 3 times the amount his alimony was based on since about 2 years prior to his divorce. And so on that end, I feel like it's just incredibly dishonest. So truly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Okay, I can't speak on any legality of any of this because I just don't know the details of what is and isn't legal. But seriously, if I was in your shoes, I can't say I wouldn't do the same thing. Your dad literally screwed over your mom. He cheated on her God knows how many times, and then has the audacity to not even give her the amount that she's owed. So no, with all things considered, I don't think you're the jerk here, because I think if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. Am I the jerk for having Dr. Pepper in my water water bottle at the gym, because after my boyfriend drank some of it, he spit it out in a fit of rage, furious that it wasn't water like he was expecting. And at this point, I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 20-year-old female, and I want to start off by saying that I love Dr. Pepper. I probably drink like a can a day, which I totally know isn't great, but I eat super healthy and I go to the gym religiously, which is where this incident took place. Me and my boyfriend, who we will call Charlie, usually work out together. Yesterday evening, before we went to the gym, I filled up my water bottle with Dr. Pepper. I hadn't had one yet that day, and I was craving it so bad. If I needed actual water at the gym, I was just planning on drinking from the water fountain, so my boyfriend didn't have limited water because I was bringing an extra. I made sure to tell Charlie this, as he really doesn't like Dr. Pepper, and I didn't want him drinking some from my water bottle. And for reference, we sometimes will take sips from each other's bottles. He just said, okay, no problem, and that he'll avoid my bottle. Well, fast forward to when we were wrapping up at the gym, and Charlie had just had an intense set and just grabbed the first bottle he saw, which just so happened to be mine. Before I could even look or react, he was spitting the Dr. Pepper out on the ground. He was sputtering angrily at me and told me that it was such a stupid idea to put Dr. Pepper in my bottle and that I should have yelled to him when he picked it up. I told him I'm sorry that he had a mouthful of Dr. Pepper when he was so out of breath and just wanted some water, but that I didn't have any time to tell him because he was just too quick and I was focused on counting my own sets. Well, he wouldn't take this as an answer and just stormed off, which was super embarrassing as I was the one who had to clean up his mess. By the time I ran out of the gym to catch up with him, he had already messaged me that he had left in an Uber. He's only sent me one text message since yesterday, saying that we'll talk about my Dr. Pepper thing later. I'm literally so confused and I just need to know if I was in the wrong, because right now I'm not sure what to do. Okay, your boyfriend is kind of a weirdo. You literally told him, hey, I have Dr. Pepper in this bottle, don't drink it. And he even acknowledged like, okay, no problem, I'll avoid it if I see it. But then he turns around, probably in front of a bunch of people, drinks a Dr. Pepper and then spits it out on the ground like a toddler. Like, hey, guess what, stupid? You literally knew it was there, but you decided to ignore it anyways and then embarrass your girlfriend in the process? Like, what's going on right now? That's not fair. You can't treat someone like that. And for him to even walk away and make you clean up after him? Like, no, I don't think so. That is not okay. That kind of behavior is super immature and there is no good reason to be doing that. And your boyfriend absolutely owes you an apology. Like, I'm sure you weren't the only ones in the gym and I'm sure other people were watching, and to have someone do an outburst like that is so cringy and so weird. So no, you're not the jerk for bringing Dr. Pepper to the gym. You literally warned him about it and he still made a huge deal about this. So seriously, the only thing that he needs to discuss is how he's going to apologize to you for the way that he treated you, because that, in my opinion, was completely uncalled for. Am I the jerk for asking my neighbor to pay for damages for his trampoline that flew onto my yard during a storm and literally damaged my fence and my yard? Because right now he's claiming it's not his problem, and at this point I'm honestly super frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so today at about 5:00 p.m., I got text messages from our great next door neighbor who said that a trampoline came flying in a storm and damaged our fence and our barn behind our house. I assessed our security system via my cell phone and I found out the trampoline came from the neighbors across the street. Now, as a side note, we are not friends with these neighbors, but up to this point have had no problems with them. I inspected the damage and our fence was destroyed and almost completely knocked flat. The trampoline hit the barn so hard, it dented the metal walls and broke 2 panels on the garage door. There were all sorts of other minor scraping along the sides of the barn as well. As I was surveying the damage, the husband of the neighbors across the street came walking up the driveway, and he did not appear concerned at all, and more than anything, he seemed really annoyed. I held our broken gate open for him to enter the yard and look at the damages with me. After reviewing the damage together, he asked me what I wanted to do about the damages. I was still a little shocked, and I said, well, your trampoline caused the damages, so you are responsible. And I'm guessing the damages were between $5,000 to $10,000. The fence was decorative aluminum to appear like wrought iron, and the damaged section was maybe 4 to 5 panels and cost us approximately $4,000 3 years ago. The garage door was insulated and was around $3,000 2 years ago, but I have no idea how to estimate the cost of repair for the dented, scraped, and damaged metal walls of the barn, which again is only 2 years old. The neighbor across the street then said, well, it's all damage to your property, so you should put all the damages through your insurance. Well, I was again shocked and incredulous at the audacity of this person. I then told him I'm an attorney and I actually am in my state. Your failure to secure the trampoline caused it to fly into my yard and destroy my fence and damage my barn. I'm not putting a claim on my insurance because I don't want my premiums to increase. I have great insurance and an umbrella due to the ponds on the property, and I have a separate rider for the barn just to be safe. And due to my profession, I made sure I have great insurance. I then told him I can either get quotes to fix the damages that you can pay for, or you can make a claim against your homeowner's insurance. He said to me, well, I'm not paying cash and I'm not making a claim against my insurance. This was an act of God. So I said to him, okay, I'm sorry you see it that way, but my firm sues around 200 cases per week. And I'm not trying to brag, it's just a fact. So suing one more will not be that difficult. Well, it's then that my neighbor decided to finally agree to put his homeowners on notice and exchange his phone number with me. Several colleagues and my mentor said he probably never put the trampoline on his insurance, and an unreported trampoline can lead to cancellation of his homeowner's insurance. So seriously, am I the jerk for insisting that he pay for the damages caused by his trampoline flying onto my property, regardless of how it happened? Because right now, I'm not sure what to do. You are not the jerk in the slightest. This guy is 100% responsible in my uneducated and unqualified opinion, and I can't believe he would try to dodge responsibility like that. Seriously, this isn't an act of God. This guy didn't tie down his trampoline and now it hit your property. Like seriously, this falls on his shoulders entirely. So yeah, hopefully he gets the picture, because I'm sure this is an easy case for someone like yourself, especially when you handle stuff like this on a daily basis. My parents control just about every aspect of my life, and despite the fact that I'm 20 years old and still in college, and also unfortunately still living with them, I feel like I'm at my breaking point, as I feel they're changing me for the worst, leaving me in a situation where I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for my entire life, my parents have been strict. I've always been known as the friend who can't stay out past 8 o'clock p.m. or can't do this or that unless my parents know one of my friends personally and really well, like if they were good friends with my parents. When I was under 18 years old, my parents wouldn't let me hang out with a friend unless they came over to my house first, and my parents met them to see what they were like as a person. Also, there were some things that they were particularly strict about, like with money. When I was 18, I went to my senior prom, and when I was going to buy my dress, my dad gave me a $100 bill to go get a prom dress after school one day. He specifically told me to keep the money in my car, but instead I kept it zipped up in my backpack all day. And when I told him that, my God, he flew off the handle and threatened to take away my money because I'm apparently irresponsible with it. He said a kid could have stole my money or I could have lost it, but I'm responsible with money, or at least I thought I was. I felt better having $100 on me rather than in my car, but I don't know. I guess I should have just left it locked in my car. I remember crying at the lunch table while he was chewing me out on the phone, and my friends were all very concerned. My dad said because I didn't listen to his specific directions, I didn't deserve to go to prom or even carry money around. I almost lost that privilege, but I did end up going to prom even though he complained about it the entire night. He told me he likes a daughter who is loyal and obeys his commands, and I did the opposite of that day. I also wasn't a bad kid at all in school. Teachers looked up to me and I tutored other students. I had nearly a 4.0 GPA, but strangely, my parents still treat me like some kind of dumb teenager who doesn't know anything. It's frustrating trying to prove to your parents that you are a responsible adult, and then you make a small mistake that just really disappoints them. Flash forward to now, and I'm 20 years old in community college, still living with my parents, and nothing much has changed. I have a part-time job now, but my parents are still strict. I cannot stay out after 11 o'clock p.m. now unless I have a good reason to be out that late. I still cannot hang out with certain friends or go certain places if they think those people are bad influences on me, or if the place I'm going to is a ripoff or too far away to travel, as they would put it. They also say that my life revolves around theirs. Any plans I make affects theirs for the day, and most of the plans they make, in my honest opinion, aren't even that important. Like just little house projects that keep themselves busy with, for example, yard work or working on the car, cleaning, and stuff like that. And they always want my help with these things, and when I tell them I have a test to study for or an assignment to complete, they say I should have been proactive and got it done before the day they needed my help on one of their projects. Anyways, a few days ago, I started a new relationship with this guy, and he is really awesome to me. He treats me well, he is super kind and respectful, and is willing to put up with my strict parents. I'm just afraid the relationship won't last long because of how strict my parents are. I told my mom I have a boyfriend now, and she was disappointed in me about it, and went on this lesson about how I need to be responsible and not ruin my life, and why I should wait until I'm 25 to date anybody. However, she did wish me the best of luck and hope for the best whilst also expressing her disapproval of it. As for my dad, I'm not even going to bother telling him about my relationship for now because I know he will have a big problem with it. If I mentioned that I was in a relationship, he would immediately chew me out and force me to break up with the person I was with. It was either that or make him come over so he can meet him first and then see if he's even a good guy for me. Then he forces us to break up anyways because apparently I'm too young for a relationship and should wait until I'm 35 to date anybody because I'm not mature enough in my 20s to make a decision like that. I don't want to keep my boyfriend a secret from my dad, but I also don't want my dad to disown me and look down on me for being in a relationship. relationship. Now that I'm 20, I just want my parents to stay out of my personal business at least. They always want to know what I'm up to, where I'm at, who I'm with, etc. I just want to be able to enjoy myself without them getting into my business constantly. Even when I don't get out of class or work on time, they call me until I answer the phone and ask why I didn't call. I guess I should be grateful that they care, but I feel like there's a point where it becomes more overbearing and stunting my growth as an individual rather than being good parents. Now, I always have them in the back of my mind whenever I'm planning things or wanting to do something all by myself. I feel like I became the person they want me to be and not who I want to be. And at this point, I honestly don't know what to do. Okay, this sounds miserable and I would not want to live in that kind of environment. I mean, think about it. These people are seriously locking you down and not allowing you to do anything with your life. Now, I know for me, if I was in that situation, I would 100% be planning to move out. And from the sounds of it, the original poster is trying that right now. They don't have a lot of money and they're trying to save up so they can get an apartment somewhere. So hopefully that happens sooner than later, because what you're describing with your parents sounds absolutely miserable. And I know personally, I would not want to put up with that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for refusing to split parking costs with my roommate after she made a big fuss over nothing? Here's what happened. Okay, so here's the situation. My roommate and older sister, let's call her Kay, demands that we split the parking for our apartment, even though she is the only one with a car. We recently moved into a new apartment, and we lived together before this in a different apartment, but for safety reasons, we had to move to our current place last month. Our lease provides 2 covered parking spots, but we have to have 2 cars registered under our apartment in order to get 2 parking passes. Since I don't have a car, as mine got stolen a few months ago, only she has got a parking pass. She had a talk with me right after we signed the lease to this apartment, where she, very condescendingly, told me that I was not going to get my parking pass because I don't have a car, and it would stay as a guest-only parking pass. Despite the aggressive tone she used, I agree with her until she told me that I would not be able to let my boyfriend borrow it when he sleeps over. After that talk, I told her I would not be paying for parking if I do not get to use my half however I please, and then we just left it at that. Fast forward and we just got our first monthly bill, and I sat her down to talk about how much each of us had left to pay since we've both been paying it off throughout the month of March. I started by subtracting parking costs from the total and then dividing it by 2 in order to get my fair half. Kay then immediately started questioning my math, asking why I'm subtracting that amount, but I explained that's what we agreed on before moving into this new apartment. Kay claims that since the parking costs are the same for 1 or 2 passes, then that means I should have to pay for half. I immediately agreed to pay for half of it and informed her I will go register my boyfriend's car so I can get the second parking pass and use it however I want. I was even generous enough to tell her when her boyfriend visits, I can let him borrow it for the weekend as long as his visit doesn't overlap with my boyfriend visiting me. For added context, my boyfriend is a full-time student and also has a full-time job, which means he gets 1 day off a week, so he sleeps over the night before his day off and his night off and leaves the day after pretty early. Kay's boyfriend lives 6 hours away and doesn't get to visit as often, and we're talking maybe once every 6 to 8 weeks. Kay believes it's not fair for both of us to pay for parking, but only my boyfriend gets to park nearby, while her boyfriend has to park his work truck further away from our apartment. I tried explaining to her that that was not the case, and that she would be paying for the parking pass she uses in her car, and I would be paying for my own parking pass to do with it whatever I pleased, including letting my boyfriend borrow it when he sleeps over. The argument just went in circles over and over again, with her saying it's not fair that her boyfriend doesn't visit as often as mine, and he would have to still park far away, but my boyfriend visits very often and gets to park nearby every time. I want to add that she had the master bedroom in our past apartment, and we didn't pay any difference in price because parking was already included in the rent, not an additional cost like here. I have the master in our current apartment because we had agreed it was a fair trade-off since she had the better bedroom last time, but now she's taking it back, claiming that since I have the better room, I should have to pay extra in rent, or I could just make it up by splitting parking costs while reaping none of the benefits. So truly, am I the jerk? Because right now I'm super frustrated. No, this is so dumb. Your roommate's being super selfish. They're trying to be like, yeah, but what about my boyfriend? And it's like, dude, your boyfriend is never here. He visits once every 2 months, whereas your boyfriend is here pretty much all the time. And it also only makes sense that you have a parking pass just in case you need one. Who knows, maybe you get the car back and you need that to get around. So no, you're not the jerk, and I think your roommate's being an idiot, and I don't blame you for being frustrated. Am I the jerk for telling off my class president and refusing to cooperate, all because she enlisted me in a school event without my consent? Because right now my classmates are saying that I'm the jerk for not cooperating, as I could potentially get all of us in trouble for not being involved. But despite the fact that I was never asked explicitly to be a part of this, I'm honestly now feeling very frustrated, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. To start things off, I'm an 18-year-old female and I'm currently in high school. Not too long ago, there was a school event that was organized to celebrate our trilingual institution, meaning that we held inter-class competitions in our local language, our national language, and in English. Every class is required to send 1 or 2 representatives per competition branch. Now, compared to my classmates, I am quite fluent in English, but I had another competition outside of my school that I needed to prepare for, so I did not enlist myself. About 2 weeks before the day of the event, the guidebook was sent to my class's group chat, as well as a list of who will be participating. Our class president, who's also an 18-year-old female, urged us to enlist ourselves, but since I was busy, I decided to ignore it. Fast forward a week after that, and at 7 p.m. on a Friday, my class president sent me a direct message. She asked me if I've already submitted the video for the upcoming school events English speech contest. When I asked for further information, she sent me a screenshot of the list in the class group chat showing that my name was on their list under English speech contest. Well, she admonished me for not paying attention since she tagged me and the other contestants literally 5 days beforehand. In fact, she said to me, "You didn't know that you were enlisted as a participant? Oh, come on. We've already listed you in the group chat since like a week ago." When I checked the actual list, I found that above it, she had conveniently cropped out a text where she had said that this was a revised list composed by herself and our class's vice president, and apparently we can't protest this as they've officially registered the people on the list. She literally said there's no excuses. Well, I screenshotted that specific text and I circled the no excuses part before sending it to her. I told her that in that entire week after she registered me and our other classmates, neither she nor her vice president ever bothered to check in with me about whether or not I'm going to be able to participate. I also emphasized the fact that only now, less than 5 hours before the deadline, did any of them bother to text me. At the end of my text, I told her that everything must be done with consent and that there was no such thing as no excuses, considering that we live in a democratic country. Well, the class president left me on red, so you know what? I said to myself, fine, whatever. A couple of days later, it's Monday again, and the class president and vice president did not bring up this issue. My parents say that I'm right for feeling slighted, while some of my classmates have said that I'm the jerk for refusing to cooperate and potentially getting the entire class in trouble. So seriously, am I the jerk? Because right now I don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk at all. I would not buy into this for a second. Because honestly, you have it right. No one's gonna be like, there's no excuses. We already registered. You can't say no. But it's like, no, I'm not gonna agree to this. You literally didn't even ask me, and you just signed me up because I'm the only person that can speak English, apparently. And to any classmate who's trying to be like, wow, you're gonna get all of us in trouble. Just cooperate. It's like, no, stupid. The only person that's getting in trouble is the class president and the vice president. You're not the jerk for not wanting to do something that you didn't sign up for. That's an insane precedent to set, and honestly, I can't stand anybody trying to like force you into this. So I know if I was in your shoes, I would absolutely go like to a higher up or some kind of principal figure and show them everything that's happened against you, because these people literally have tried to sign you up for something against your will, almost as if they're gonna like make you do it in some kind of way. And it's like, yeah, okay, buddy, like you're gonna make me do anything, because the way they handle this is incredibly idiotic and you don't deserve to deal with this in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for yelling at a mom and her kid to get out of my house after they literally make a mess of everything? Because right now I'm being slandered on Facebook and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 28-year-old female, and a few months ago I started a new Dungeons & Dragons campaign and invited a few friends. One of them, who we will call Sarah, asked if her friend, who we will call Anne, could join us. For reference, Anne is a mom who doesn't get many chances to hang out with adults, so I agreed, even though I knew she might be flaky due to childcare responsibilities. I then asked Anne if she could at least attend the first few sessions to get familiar with the game, and she agreed. She then proceeded to cancel, mostly last minute, every single proposed first session for the next 2 months. I told her I'm sorry, but if she can't make it to the next proposed session, she won't be in the long campaigns, but still is welcome to join any one-shots. She then apologized and said that she will make it. Well, to her credit, she did make it, but she brought her toddler with her without asking me first. As soon as they came, the kid needed to use the bathroom, and he made a mess since he can't fully use an adult toilet yet. I told Anne that's fine, but asked her to please clean it up. And when I said this surprised her, and she started being a bit on edge. We finally sat down at the table, and the kids started running around looking for things to do. I was a bit stressed out by this, and Anne noticed and put him in her lap. But now the kid was at the table, which was covered in mini figurines, dice, pretty pictures, and maps, most of which being a choking hazard, along with glasses of various drinks. The kids started fussing about wanting to play with them, and I was telling Anne no because it's not safe, but she told me he's gentle and doesn't put stuff in his mouth. And quite literally, we were bickering while her kid was throwing a tantrum. After the kid knocked over a glass, class, I loudly asked her to step out into the backyard and calm him down for a bit while I make the table safer. Well, she did, even though she was visibly embarrassed, and I removed everything except for plain-looking papers, some pens, and paper cups. I also did my best to calm down, as this entire thing stressed me out beyond end. They came back and things were fine for a minute. That is, until my dog came out of my bedroom to drink water. Now, I don't have many house rules, but I have one that's really important. Please ignore the dog. And they were informed of that before coming over. Well, the kid spotted her and yelled, "Doggy!" And Anne put her kid down to say hi to the dog, where he then made a full-speed beeline at my dog while making grabbing motions and yelling. I stopped him by stepping out in front of him. He ran into me, fell down, and started crying. It was here that Anne started screaming at me, but you know what? I screamed back and very swiftly told her to get the F out of my house. Sarah was annoyed and told us that it took them an hour and a half to get to me, and then went with Anne since they carpooled together. The rest of the group stayed, and it was awkward for half an hour or so, but we ended up having fun and they even stayed for the night. I then woke up to the local Facebook groups and people's Instagram stories calling me a controlling jerk, saying I'm discriminating against various players, being too strict, and I have a dangerous dog. To add insult to injury, Sarah, who I've been friends with for years, is now not speaking to me. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I don't know what to do. No, you are definitely not the jerk. First and foremost, I think Anne in this story is a complete moron, and the fact that she doesn't realize how bad she's acting is just so uncalled for. I mean, she brought her kid over without asking first, and just said, "Oh yeah, this'll be fine, don't worry about it. He's gonna play with us, he's really gentle." And then literally in that same sentence, that kid pushes over a glass and ruins everything on the board. Like, I don't think so. That's not gonna happen. That's not okay. But for Anne to let the kid down and start running at the dog, you know, the same dog they were told to ignore, who very well could have gone ballistic with this kind of overstimulation. Like, seriously, what's going on right now? How crappy of a parent do you need to be to allow your kid to go near a dog that, guess what, you don't know anything about? You don't know if that's a nice dog or a mean dog. You don't know if that dog's super aggressive or it's like a rescue or something like that, so it might have like a negative reaction to children. Like, seriously, what were you thinking? Why would you do that? Because I know if I was in the original poster shoes, I absolutely would have blocked that annoying demon spawn from getting near my dog. And the fact that Anne tried to blame that on you and be like, your dog's dangerous. It's like, no, Anne, you're a terrible parent and your kid has no self-control. So truly, I'm glad you kicked them out of your house, because honestly, that is the best course of action in my opinion. Because if her flaking out several times before wasn't a good indication that she sucks as a person, then her bringing her kid along and blaming you for all the problems she started is a really good indication that she's going to be a problem player pretty much no matter what. My boyfriend's dad is constantly making degrading insults towards me while defending the fact that he says they're jokes and that they don't actually mean anything. But after enduring this for so long, I'm honestly at a breaking point and I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I've been with my boyfriend for 1.5 years and I've genuinely tried with his dad, but I feel like I'm at my limit. Reason being is that his dad constantly makes comments that are degrading and make me feel deeply uncomfortable. He will constantly refer to me by horrible names and things that are just unbelievably inappropriate. He makes remarks about my eating, saying things like, "You don't stop eating, you just keep sucking food up. My God, don't tell me you're eating again. I mean, what don't you eat?" And the list goes on and on. I already struggle with body image, and my boyfriend and his parents are aware of this, so having someone make these comments feels humiliating, especially when I'm at a very healthy weight. I'm toned and I work out 5 times a week. It's not even about my body. It's the constant need to comment on what I'm eating. He will sometimes cook Sunday dinner and do me one too, and then berate me for eating it quickly. He also constantly comments on my appearance. He's told me I shouldn't wear makeup around the house and that I should wear light clothing instead of black. Before we went on holiday together, his parents sat me down and told me I should stop wearing so much makeup. And for reference, I've worn gothic smoky eye makeup for like 10 years because you know what? I like it. They also said I shouldn't wear makeup during the day on holidays because according to them, it will melt off. But I was also told I could wear it on the evenings. And my boyfriend defended this by saying they just want me to feel more confident. When we were on holiday together, his dad was especially nasty to me, and I felt completely trapped in a foreign country. I couldn't even have alcohol without being called an alcoholic. I felt trapped and it put a strain on my relationship. He also frequently looks me up and down inappropriately, in front of my boyfriend too, mind you, which makes me feel incredibly uncomfortable. In fact, even their own pets are afraid of him. The part that's really hard to navigate is that my boyfriend is always chasing his dad's approval. His dad was so cruel and cold to him growing up that they only formed a relationship after COVID, despite always living together. His dad always favored his only sister, which is ironic given how he talks about women. And yet my boyfriend insists that his dad loves me and is protective of me, saying that he would go to war for me. But that literally doesn't match anything I experience from him. My boyfriend has confronted his dad before, telling him to stop with the name calling, and his dad hugged me and apologized, saying it was just a joke and that he would be more careful. But since then, it feels like he's been on a mission to push my boundaries even further, almost to prove that I can't tell him what to do. And my boyfriend told me I shouldn't expect his dad to change and that his dad shouldn't have to walk on eggshells. I love my boyfriend and I love the time we spend together, but I'm at the point where I want to completely avoid his dad because he makes me feel so uncomfortable. My body literally goes into fight or flight when I see him. So how do I set boundaries when my boyfriend doesn't seem to think I should? What should I do? Okay, this is messed up across the board in my opinion, because the fact that your boyfriend doesn't see this as a problem, in my opinion, is a massive red flag. That is not something I would take lightly because he really should be on your side. You saying, oh my gosh, I feel uncomfortable by this, should be more than enough for him to step in and be like, wait a second, this can't happen anymore. Because that guy's dad sounds like a toxic piece of work. It doesn't sound like he cares about you at all, and he just wants to berate you and make fun of you and treat you like garbage. And most likely it's from his own amusement or something like that. So no, this is not okay, this is not normal, and I don't blame you for being upset. Because if I was in your shoes, I would feel the exact same way. An entitled Karen skips in front of me in a long line for food after I'd been waiting there for about 10 minutes. But after she tried to justify her reasoning, as well as trying to put me down at the age of 8 years old, my mom steps in and pops off on this lady in a way that she truly was not expecting, making this one of the most satisfying moments of my life so far. Here's what happened. So this happened when I was around 8 years old, when I encountered my first ever entitled Karen. For context, me and my mother were visiting her old high school for a reunion of hers, and the building had a vending machine of microwavable foods, including cheeseburgers, hot dogs, and popcorn. I chose the cheeseburger and the line was huge. I mean, there were like so many people in line. So I went back and I sat with my mom to wait. I returned back to the line after noticing that it got shorter, but as I was about to put my food in the microwave, this lady who looked to be in about her 40s immediately skipped in front of me. So I said to her, excuse me ma'am, I was standing in front of you. Looking at me with a sickeningly sweet expression, this entitled Karen said to me, I'm sorry sweetie, but I stepped out of line to talk to a friend, so I was actually in front of you. I then looked at her and I said, but you were never in line. At this point, she was sneering at me with a condescending look in her eye. She said to me, please don't talk back to me, sweetheart. Either go find your mother or suck it up and stand at the back of the line. I'm not gonna argue with a child. I was upset, and being that I was only 8 years old, I pouted just a little bit. But instead of going to the back of the line, I went and told my mom what happened. And to say that she showed anger fast was an understatement. She immediately went on Mama Bear mode and took my hand and we stomped back up to the line. Well, this entitled Karen noticed my mother and said, what do you want? My mom then says to her, did you just skip my kid? She was waiting in this line for about 10 minutes before you showed up. The Karen lets out a snort and says, so what if I did? She's a big girl, she'll get over it. My mom is obviously getting angry at this point, and she says to her, she is 8 years old, are you kidding me? You can't be the bigger person and go to the back of the line. You were obviously not in line, so grow up and get in the back. The entitled Karen rolls her eyes and says, whatever. She then looks at me and says, I'm sorry, kid. But my mom was not having any of that. She said to this Karen, don't talk to my child now, when you could have avoided this whole ordeal by just going to the back of the line. At this point, the Karen was screaming at my mom, claiming that I was lying and that she was a terrible mother. She accused her of raising a spoiled brat and yelled at me, calling me a few choice words. I then started crying because I was a pretty sensitive kid. One of the high school security guards noticed the noise and broke up the fight. The Karen immediately started acting innocent and accused me of skipping her, which obviously wasn't true. The security guard luckily was watching the entire interaction and told the Karen to either get in the back of the line and wait, or she could leave the premises. Well, she didn't like that and started to throw a temper tantrum, screaming about how she was going to sue my mom, the guard, and me. But after another threat from the guard, she sucked it up and stormed to the back of the line. I got to microwave my stuff and I walked back to my mother, and I honestly couldn't resist a bit of childish pettiness and revenge. So I smirked smugly at the Karen, who was now fuming at this point, while also sticking my tongue out at her. She was about to scream, but instead she just muttered the word brat under her breath. So I guess the moral of the story is that you shouldn't try to skip the line, because regardless, it's a really crappy thing to do. Yeah, this Karen was seriously out of line. You mean to tell me after not getting her way, she not only throws a temper tantrum, but then she's like, oh, I'm gonna sue everybody, especially you, and then points at like the 8-year-old version of you. It's like, dude, what are you talking about? I'm just trying to get like this food or whatever. You're the one that's skipping in front of an 8-year-old and trying to justify it. Like, who's the real bad guy here? I don't think it's me. I'm pretty sure it's you. So yeah, I love this story so much, and honestly, it is so nice to see a Karen get shut down in her place. An entitled, idiotic customer literally ignores all the warnings I give him when it comes to returning a product at our store, because after he came in the next day trying to return a product that we could only give partial credit back for, he's now pissed off, claiming that he never knew any of the things that I literally explained to him 24 hours prior. And now I'm honestly honestly super frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Many years ago, the shop I worked in had a strict policy. They had a restocking fee on all returns unless the product was actually faulty. Usually people understood when we explained we can't sell an open product as new, so if it simply wasn't to their liking, we would offer a partial refund. Well, not everybody understood this, especially for the guy I'm about to describe. On the first visit, the customer asked about a product. We discuss it in detail and I answer every question that he has. The customer then says to me, "If it doesn't work, can I return it?" I explain to him by saying, well, if it's faulty, certainly. If it's not faulty, there is a restocking fee, and you would need your receipt, and it's up to 12 months and all the other details that might need to be known. So the customer buys whatever it is. Well, fast forward, and on the second visit, the customer wants to return the product. I say to him, "Okay, can I ask why you need to return it?" The customer then says, "Well, it doesn't do what I want it to." I then ask further and I say, "Okay, well, how so?" The customer says, "Well, I needed to do all this other stuff and it just doesn't do that," as he then went into detail about all the things he needs this thing to do. I say to him, "Okay, no problem. We can refund you, but as it's not faulty, it will be a partial refund." He then asked the magic question, "Well, why is it a partial refund?" So I have to explain once again, well, it's because it's not faulty. We can't resell this product with an open box and a broken seal as a new item. As there's nothing wrong with it, we can allow you to return it, but not for full price. The customer then starts shouting, "Well, that's not fair. Why should I have to pay for something that I don't want?" But I say to him, "Well, you're returning it open and used. It's now a secondhand item. We won't be able to charge full price on it for the next customer. If you decided you don't want this anymore, as a courtesy, we will accept it back, minus any cost that we will incur." The customer then said to me, "Well, I don't agree to that." But I explained to him, "Sir, I was the one who sold this to you yesterday. I remember our conversation, including when I explained the restocking fee on non-faulty items. So yes, you did indeed agree to this." The customer then said, "Oh, I never said that." But I had to further explain by saying, "Well, I'm not saying you spoke the words 'I agree to the terms of the sale' out loud, but I am saying that I explained to you the terms of the sale and then you purchased the item. And those two things happen in that order. With that knowledge, you could have decided not to purchase the item, but you did it anyways. So it was an agreement to the terms of the sale." The customer then just came back and said, "Well, no, it wasn't." But I said to him, "You said it isn't faulty. We said we would offer a partial refund if it was returned non-faulty. And here we are offering you a partial refund exactly as we discussed before you went ahead with a sale." The customer then tried to double back as if I wasn't paying attention and said, "Well, it is faulty." When I asked him how so, he said to me, "Well, it doesn't do all the things that I want." So I responded back by saying, "Well, yeah, correct, it doesn't. It wasn't designed to do all those extra things. You asked a number of questions about it yesterday, and I answered all of them at length, and the things that you're wanting were never mentioned. So it's not faulty if it does everything it was designed to do." The customer then said that they can't make use of it, but I explained that as a courtesy, we offer a partial refund. He then said, "Well, that's not good enough." And at this point, all I could say was, "Okay." The customer then asked me what I meant by okay, and I just responded by saying, "I personally answered every question you asked about this item, including the one you had about refunds. You were fully aware of the terms of the sale, and you made the choice to buy it. It is now your item. It literally belongs to you. We are offering a partial refund on a non-faulty item, and you have said that offer is not good enough. There's no obligation on your part to accept our offer. This is definitely your choice as well." The customer then looked at me and said, "Well, what do you expect me to do?" And now I was gobsmacked. I seriously did not know what to say. So I just looked at him and I said, "Well, I'm not sure what you mean. I don't have any expectations of you. You can choose to accept our offer of a partial refund or not. That is for you to decide." Well, we never saw that one ever again, and honestly, it left me feeling very confused and very annoyed. Man, this customer did not know what they wanted. I mean, for me, the second I find out there's a partial refund at a place I'm buying something, that's when I decide, you know what, I'm just gonna go somewhere else, or I'm gonna shop online or something like that. Having a partial refund, in my opinion, is a stupid policy, and that is absolutely ridiculous, and I personally think that anybody should have a right to return something if they didn't use it, and if it's within a certain period of time that they can actually return it, like 30 days or 90 days or whatever might be going on. So that for me is a big red flag already, but this guy went ahead with it and is now trying to be like, "Well, I didn't agree to a partial refund." And it's like, yeah, dude, absolutely you did agree to this. All of this was explained to you and you still bought it. This is your own problem and not mine. And if you've ever worked customer service, then you know this feeling where you're like, dude, I literally explained all of this to you and you just ignored it and said, "Well, I didn't agree to that." It's like customers like this become so stupid all of a sudden, and it's like weaponizing competence or something like that. It is so annoying and I cannot stand it, especially when you're the person that helped this customer out and you know for a fact you went over every single detail with that guy. You went over what kind of product they're getting, all the things it does do and doesn't do, and all the stipulations associated with returns and having a receipt, while also having what looks looks like up to like a 12-month period of like, hey, you can return it in this window, like that's already a super generous offer. So for him, literally 24 hours later, to turn around and try to return it, all under the guise of like, oh, it doesn't do all the things I want it to do. It's like, dude, you're so dumb. Like, seriously, get a grip. But overall, I think you handled this really well because you did not allow this guy to bully you into getting his way. Because I guarantee you, someone like that absolutely would have pushed you around to get what they want. And that, in my opinion, is super unfair. My psycho grandfather tried to manipulate me, bribe me, and then force me into getting plastic surgery for my ear, as he was literally so obsessed with my ears and how they were completely misshaped that he went to crazy lengths just to force me into getting plastic surgery. He even went as far as to try and trick me into having surgery the same day just so I would get it done and be perfect in his eyes. And I'm honestly still blown away by the way he treated me. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm a 22-year-old male, and this is about my controlling grandfather who literally spent years trying to force me into plastic surgery. This is going to be a long one, so please buckle up. Now, for a bit of context, I was born with two slightly different shaped ears. One of them curls in a little, but it's not super noticeable unless you're staring at me from up close. It doesn't affect my life in any way, except that earbuds fall out more easily. Kids did tease me a little bit, but whatever. It was just how I looked. My grandfather, however, did not see it that way. To him, I wasn't perfect, and that was unacceptable. Looking back, I realized he was making comments about my ears since I was in preschool, but things really escalated when I turned 14 years old, which, for a bit of context, is the age that you can legally get plastic surgery in my former country. Practically every day, he would remind me of my hideous and atrocious ear. At the time, I lived with my mom, and he lived in the apartment below us. This meant that he had easy access to my life and never missed an opportunity to put me down. One day, after months of brainwashing, he took me to a fancy restaurant, just the two of us. Keep in mind, my mom and I were lower middle class, while he was more on the upper class side. I thought it was just a nice lunch, but when dessert arrived, he casually asked me, "So do you want to finally get plastic surgery and look normal?" And just like always, I told him no. I liked how I looked. I was unique. Now, what was his response, you might be wondering? He just silently stood up, paid the bill, yanked me by the arm, and dragged me to his car. He shoved me out in front of our apartment and drove off without another word. Now, he was supposed to watch me that evening since my mom had to work late, but instead he ignored me completely. I had no keys, so I sat outside for 6 hours until my mom came home. A few weeks later, he started talking to me again, acting like nothing had happened. One day, he even picked me up early from school and took me out to a restaurant. Strangely, for the first time in years, he didn't mention my ear. Not once. But instead, we just had fun. And over the next few weeks, he kept this up. We would go to movies, museums, my favorite restaurants. No insults, no guilt tripping. It honestly felt nice. But under the surface, there was a scheme going that honestly I didn't see coming. Because what my grandfather did next honestly blew my mind. Fast forward, and one day during a car ride home, he asked me, "What do you want the most, and I'll buy it for you?" Well, asking an open-ended question like that to a 14-year-old left me ecstatic. So I asked him for a gaming PC. Well, without any hesitation, he drove me straight to the store and told me to pick out whatever I wanted, even setting a budget of $2,000. To me, that was an insane amount of money. I then just picked out my dream setup, practically shaking with excitement. Then, at the register, he turned to me and said, "All right, pay up." I blinked at him and I said, "Wait, what?" He then said to me, "Oh, you don't have the money? Well, I'll give it to you on one condition. You will fix your ear." His voice at this moment was deep and demanding, loud but not yelling, but still firm. I then started crying and I ran out of the store. And I literally ran the 5 kilometers back home. When I told my mom, she was livid. She stormed downstairs, pounded on his door until he opened up, and they argued for a long time. When she came back, she was in tears, but she told me I had done the right thing. The next day, my grandfather acted completely normal again. He picked me up from school, he was super friendly, and he told me that he had a surprise for me. On one hand, I knew he was up to something. On the other hand, he had taught me from a young age to use people for what they could offer. So I got in the car hoping for another fun day, but instead he drove me to a private health clinic. Once inside, he introduced me to his friend, a plastic surgeon. They talked for a while before the surgeon took my measurements, and then, just before signing the documents, the surgeon turned to me and asked, "Which one of you wants this surgery today?" At this point, I was frozen. My grandfather then immediately answered, "He does, he's just nervous." I then pointed at him and I held back my tears, and at this point, the doctor frowned. Well, I can't perform surgery if the patient doesn't want it. My grandfather then lied and said that he was my legal guardian, stating that it's because my parents were dead. He tried to fake documents to authorize the surgery, but thankfully the doctor refused. Now at that point, I completely broke down, terrified that something had happened to my mom. My grandfather sighed, drove me home without saying a word again, and handed me off to my mom, who had no idea where I'd been. And that moment was the breaking point for everything. We went low contact with him for a few years, years, or possibly he was punishing us by ignoring us as he tended to do that. Well, eventually, even I needed braces, and he offered to pay for them. We were tight on money, so my mom reluctantly agreed. He promised to cover half the cost, but in reality, he paid for half of my top braces and a quarter of the bottom ones. And not to mention, how he didn't think it was necessary to pay $20 every 2 weeks for a couple of years for tightening. He still, every couple of months or so, tried to bribe me to get the surgery, or to accept money as a loan that I didn't need to try and pay him back, or any other way that he could think of to get control over me. Even now, years later, he still is trying to control me. I mean, I moved to a different country after college just to get away from him. I have no job yet, my savings are drained, and almost like he sensed it, he reached out last week. He said to me, "Do you want $10,000? All you have to do is get this quick, simple surgery and the money is yours." But you know what? I didn't even reply. After the incident at the clinic, my grandfather went on a smear campaign, telling our extended family that my mom, his own daughter, had somehow turned me against my loving and caring grandfather. And you know what? Most of them believed him. My mom and I were banned from family gatherings, holidays, and celebrations, and he even told us that we had no right to use our own last name anymore, with the only person who stayed on our side being my grandmother. I know this was a lot, and I'm so sorry for dumping it all on you guys, but I needed to tell somebody. The last 2 therapists I saw sided with him, so I feel like I have no one unbiased to talk to. And just to be clear, I will never get this surgery, and I will never take his money ever in my life. Wow, your grandfather's a piece of garbage. Seriously, this guy's trying to be like, "Oh, you need to fix your ear. Here's all the money in the world. Get it done because I want it done." First of all, it's not that big of a deal, and secondly, this is not his body. He does not have a say over what you can and cannot do with it. So if you don't want to get that surgery, then congratulations, don't get it. I mean, this guy even went as far as taking you to a clinic and saying, "Okay, we're here to get surgery done." It's like, no, dude, you can't do that to somebody. So in my opinion, I think it's probably a good thing that you don't have to deal with your grandfather anymore, or at least you know exactly the kind of person he is. Because I know if I was in your shoes, I would cut him off completely. I would not only never talk to him again, but I would also fix my reputation amongst the family. I would tell them exactly what he did to me. I would spare no details, and I would literally be like, "Look, this is exactly what happened." Because what he did to you, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable, and there's honestly no good excuse for any of that. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Today, I messed up by making my girlfriend think that I was cheating on her, but in reality, I was planning a surprise engagement with her and her family, despite the fact that she thought I was cheating on her with her best friend. Here's what happened. Alright, so this actually happened over the weekend, and I'm still a bit shaken and relieved writing this. So my girlfriend and I have been together for 3 years, and I wanted to do something really special for her birthday coming up. I decided I would plan a surprise party and propose to her at the party in front of our friends and family. And yes, I know, this definitely is very ambitious. The past few weeks, I've been sneaking around organizing everything. I bought a ring, conspired with her best friend, and even had secret calls with her parents to get their blessing. I was so excited, and I was sure it would be an epic surprise. Well, the mess up began with all the secretive behavior this required. I am usually an open book, but suddenly I'm hiding my phone, texting people behind her back, and making up lame excuses to duck out of the house. I thought I was being slick to avoid spoiling the surprise, but in reality, I was acting really sketchy. Her best friend who's helping me plan messaged me something like, "Hey, I can't wait to see you to go over the final details." And this is while my girlfriend was borrowing my phone to play a song. I snatched the phone back so fast and pretended that it was a work message, but this was a mistake. At that point, I officially raised every suspicious red flag possible, and I could feel her side-eyeing me for the rest of the night. Over the next few days, I noticed my girlfriend getting quiet and anxious. I tried to play it cool, but I was often rushing off to take calls from the party venue or whispering to her friends about party preparation. She then started asking me strange questions. Stuff like, "Everything okay between us?" And I just nervously laughed it off, which only made me look guiltier. I was this close to the finish line, so I figured it would be fine once I pulled off the surprise. You know, if I could avoid looking like a cheating jerk for 2 more days. Well, last Friday, it all came crashing down. I came home and found my girlfriend in tears holding an iPad. Now, here's a pro tip for you. If you have Apple devices, they all get your iMessages. And basically, she had seen some of my message exchanges with her best friend about the plan and keeping it a secret. Now, one out of context line from me said, "Hey, I can't wait to finally do this. It's so hard to keep lying to my girlfriend." Now, for clarity, I meant lying to her about why I was busy, but my God, out of context, it looks so bad. She then confronted me sobbing, thinking I was having an affair with her best friend or something like that. She was shaking and my heart absolutely dropped into my stomach. I then started panicking, trying to explain it's not what you think. It took me a solid minute to get her to stop yelling and just listen. I was literally on my knees. Not exactly how I planned this, trying to calm her down and tell her the truth. I said to her, I swear I was lying because I'm trying to plan a surprise for you. Please just open that closet. She was still confused and sniffling and crying, and she opened the closet where I hid the birthday gift bag and the ring box inside. She turned back to me and I just blurted out everything. The party, the proposal, how her friend and parents were in on it, and that I'm an idiot. She then went from angry crying to shocked crying, and finally started to happy crying once it all clicked in place. I ended up officially proposing to her right then and there on our living room floor, because why not at that point? Not the most grand romantic gesture I envisioned, but the ring made it on her finger. She said yes through a lot of tears and a half laugh at how absurd the whole situation was, and we just sat on the floor hugging each other, both of us just kind of trembling, her from the emotional roller coaster I put her on, and me from narrowly avoiding complete disaster. Later on, when things calmed down, she did kind of scold me by saying, "You dummy, I really thought you were cheating, you scared me," which is fair. I feel like a total jerk for putting her through that. We also had a laugh when she realized that her best friend's winky face emojis in our text messages were about the cake and decorations and not about secret hookups. In the end, we decided to still go through the birthday party that night and act like the proposal was a surprise in front of our friends. It was awkwardly hilarious because everyone but her thought that she was genuinely surprised when I got down on one knee. I mean, they had no idea she'd found out beforehand. And you know what? We haven't told that part of the story to our families yet. And for now, that little fiasco is just gonna be between me and the internet. Wow, talk about turning a possibly disastrous situation into a really good one. I completely understand where the girlfriend's coming from too, by the way. This looks really sketchy from her perspective. She sees you sneaking around, talking to her best friend via text messaging, and just all around acting shady and really secretive. And that, in my opinion, would set anybody's alarm bells off in their head. So good for you for fixing this possible disaster, because this really could have fallen apart in the worst way possible. My younger brother's girlfriend said something that made me incredibly uncomfortable. But now, even months later, this is still a problem in my family's lives as they constantly bring this up and criticize her for what she said. And as a result, I feel like I'm at a breaking point because I literally just want things to go back to the way they were. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Okay, for a bit of background, my brother, who we will call John, is very different from me. And honestly, it's always been that way. I'm a nerdy guy who likes to play Dungeons and Dragons and someone who works from home coding websites. He's always been sporty and has one of those corporate office jobs where I swear half of his work is just playing golf and going to fancy lunches. We didn't always get along, but these days we are on pretty good terms. He started dating his girlfriend, who we will call Jane, a few years back during what was a pretty low point for me in my life. I had just gotten out of a long-term relationship that had ended anything but amicably, was burning out of the career I went to college for, and in general was about 2 paychecks away from having to move in with my folks. The stress of it all was taking a toll on my body. I went from the lightly chubby that I'd been my entire life to just straight up fat. And shortly after the breakup, I had an anxiety attack so bad, it put me in the hospital. So basically, it was not a good time to get to know me. I was basically the picture of your messed up older brother. But you know what? I turned it around. I got the mental health assistance that I needed to diagnose and treat some long-standing issues. With that as a springboard, I started exercising more and eating better, finding cooking to be a good hobby that also led to me eating less takeout and processed food. I'm still no Adonis and I've still got a bit of a tummy, but I'm much stronger and I feel better. I was able to quit my job and find a new one in a field that I never considered, but that I found I loved enough that I'm going back to school to work on my PhD in the fall so that I can pursue it in a greater extent. And finally, I started dating again. Someone who, for the sake of the story, I'll call Flo, turned out to be a much better match for me than my ex, which all brings us to the night where things went wrong. We have a family gathering at my parents' house, extended family and all, plus we had Jane and Flo over. And for this event, I'm making dinner, which is beef Wellington. Everyone is raving about my food. And for reference, I also did dinner this past Thanksgiving as well. They're also talking about my recent glow up, my new job, the program I got into, etc. I'm smiling politely and mostly just trying to do a bunch of dinner prep while they just won't get out of my way. Then Jane says to me, "Yeah, never thought I picked the wrong brother, but I'm starting to think that I might have." When she said that, you could literally hear a pin drop. I said nothing again and just awkwardly laughed at what I assumed to have been a bad joke. Jane's face then immediately changed to the look of someone who had just realized their mess up. John looked pissed off, and the two of them left the kitchen shortly afterwards. From what I could see, she seemed to be trying to apologize to him, while he looked really hurt. My relatives said nothing. Not immediately anyways. Flo just kind of winced, and later told me that it was really awkward having to stand there, but she didn't know what else to do that would have escalated things or put me on the spot. Well, that was over 2 months ago, and both John and Jane avoid me like the plague. Not even a text message ever ever since then, whenever I meet up with my relatives, they badmouth her over it. And while I think Jane did mess up saying that, I really do think she was just trying to make a bad joke. Personally, I think they're overreacting. This aside, I think she's probably the first person he's ever dated who was a fit for him in terms of personality and lifestyle. The only person being normal about it is Flo, who thinks it was weird, but like me, just a dumb thing to say. She's not even jealous about the situation. She knows Jane isn't my type. So seriously, how do I clear the air with Jane and John and finally get people to stop bringing this up? I'm sick of hearing about it and I just want things to go back to how they were before. Right now, it just feels like a dark cloud over all our interactions. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Oh man, this is really annoying because I think you're exactly right. I think maybe she just made a bad joke and it flopped really bad. And now everybody's making a bigger deal out of this than there needs to be. Like that, in my opinion, is way worse than what she said because it really seems like they're just using that as an excuse to treat her like crap. And that is really not fair. Like seriously, that's not fair. So I know if I was in your shoes, I would be taking the chance to look at these people and say, hey, you really need to stop talking like this because it's not good. I would even go to different family members in private and be like, listen, can we please stop this? This is weird and I don't like it and I don't agree with what you're doing. And then maybe that can like help mitigate things a little bit because I think at the end of the day, Jane just literally put her foot in her mouth. And now people are pretty much just throwing this way out of proportion. My dad keeps self-inviting himself on my trips across Europe and other places, where he literally shows up unannounced and basically interrupts all my plans right then and there. And I'm at a point where it keeps happening and it's honestly so annoying. And at this point, I don't know what to do. To start things off, I'm 30 years old with no siblings and a good relationship with my parents. I live a 2-hour flight away from my parents, and it's important to know that I love traveling. But ever since my early 20s, I'm always very uncomfortable telling my parents where I'm going next. I did a couple of trips with a friend in my early 20s, and my dad showed up in a surprising way. One time, it was in a European country, and the other one was in Thailand for a few days. And he continued the vacation by himself, and we went for dinner. My dad loves traveling, and my mom doesn't want to leave the country, so I guess from his perspective, when I go places, he has an opportunity to travel without being alone. I can't understand that, but I'm also very independent. And I'm 30, not over 60. The problem is that he always operates in the same way. I know every time I say I'm going somewhere, he is going to start checking how much a flight is for him. He won't ask if he can join, and instead he would appear as a surprise, self-inviting himself thinking that this is cool. For example, one time I said I was going with my boyfriend at the time to Paris, and he messaged me a few days later that he had everything planned to show up and wanted to know locations of my hotel. Now mind you, this was Paris in my 20s with my first official boyfriend, and he did not have the filter to understand that he was not invited, and at least that time I was able to avoid it since he needed some information. Recently, I went on a long weekend to Iceland by myself, and he made a comment that I should have told him about it earlier so that he could join me. The way I've been dealing with this is for a quick weekend trip in Europe sometimes, where I just don't tell anybody anything. For the rest, I tell them 1 or 2 days in advance only, so there's not that much time for him to plan out or think about it. I am so tired that every single time I get excited and have a trip planned, I spend weeks overthinking this, considering how and when I'm gonna have to avoid this happening. I am going to China for a week, and I haven't told him about this yet, but I keep getting weird dreams about this topic. He likes Asia and has been there a few times, so I see it as high risk, and I'm stressing out about it. I love him, but I really just don't like traveling with him. We have different ways and opinions, and at this point, I'm seriously not sure what to do. Yeah, I can understand why this would be really weird because that just doesn't sound like a fun time. Seriously, he's interrupting your plans. He's literally getting involved in ways that you don't want him to get involved. And to that end, I don't blame you for being upset. But I do think that this is one of those situations where like, yeah, you probably need to talk to him straight up and just straight up say that you don't want him showing up to any of your vacation plans. I would just tell him straight up that it's making you uncomfortable and you don't want to deal with that. Because what you're describing sounds really annoying, and I know if I was in your shoes, I would feel the exact same way. Am I the jerk for removing my cousin from my PC after they literally logged me out of a program that I needed to stay into, resulting in my cousin crying to his mother and me being painted as the bad guy? Here's what happened. Okay, so my uncle and his kids used to come over every single weekend, and they told their children it was okay to do whatever they wanted in my room, including taking my things. And one night, my cousin parked himself in front of my PC, all without asking if he could use it first. I see that he logs me out of a program, so I tell him to wait so I can log in again. He just responds that no, he didn't need to wait. Then for a full 15 minutes, I tell him to pause the YouTube video that he was watching, and I try to pause the video myself, but he just shoved my hands away from the mouse. Every time I told him to wait, he would also just yell at me. Eventually, I said, "Get your act together or leave. And that didn't even receive a response. So at that point, I just turned off the PC. Immediately, he turned on the crocodile tears and ran to his mom. I explained I only wanted him to pause so I could log into a program that he logged me out of. She responded and said, "So you just had to do that while he was sitting there?" I responded back by saying it's actually my stuff he's sitting at. She then said to me, "Okay, nice. Well, we will remember that." For reference, before that, I wasn't even allowed to touch a Rubik's Cube when I was at their place. In fact, I got told by my cousin that I'm not allowed to touch their stuff. So I angrily went to my room and I shut the door. I then overheard my grandma, who was living there with us at the time, saying that she can't say that I've been mean to the kids. My cousin's mom then says, "Well, I've been patient with him for a long time." And also, apparently my cousin has been telling his mom that I've been mean and said mean things, which I never did. They eventually discovered that he had been lying about me for a long time, but of course, I never got an apology. She then says to my grandma as she was at the door ready to leave, she said, "I think this is the case. I believe he isn't confident with people his own age, so he has to compensate for that by attacking the kids." So am I the jerk in this situation for making my cousin cry, even though he was messing with my stuff? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, no, you are definitely not the jerk, and it's incredibly strange to me that your uncle and his wife would be like, "Oh yeah, use whatever you want. You can do anything in that room. Don't even worry about it." Even going as far as being like, "Oh yeah, you can steal from your cousin." Like at that point, I would lock down the entire room and change the password on the PC and everything. I would make it so they could never get into that ever again, because why should you let them? Like seriously, these people have completely violated your privacy and have taken it upon themselves to treat you like garbage. And that, in my opinion, is incredibly toxic, and you do not deserve that in the slightest. An entitled DoorDasher decides to mouth off at restaurant staff, causing the manager to drop the hammer on this idiot in a way that I'm sure he will truly never forget. Here's what happened. So I'm in between jobs after getting laid off in January, and I DoorDash to try and make ends meet during the job search. I know there can be a bit of a rivalry between Dashers and restaurant staff, and that some Dashers can be quite rude. I hate that. They make us all look bad, and they feed into a stereotype that I don't particularly appreciate or even fall into. I've also worked in fast food, fast casual, and casual dining, so I'm pretty sympathetic to staff stressors. Everyone is busy and stressed out, and we could all use a little more grace. And bear with me because this will be relevant. The other day, I picked up an order at a nicer sit-down restaurant, and I really like this place. The staff are great and the food is good, so it's pretty popular. Plus, it costs enough that orders tend to tip really well. While I was paying for my order, another Dasher came in and spoke to the very sweet young hostess, although I wasn't paying attention and I didn't hear what he said. A few minutes later, the manager, very much a lady of the kind who seems to cut from a certain abrasive cloth, especially associated with a particular woman's name, which is on brand for the area of the city I live in, by the way, comes out with my order and asks who it is. I raise my hand and I say, "That's me, thank you," and then she gives it to me. As she's doing this, she points to the other Dashers and says, "I need to talk to you." And when she said this, my ears perked up. Do they know each other? As I'm taking my receipt picture required by the application, she points a finger in his face and totally lays into him. I don't remember word for word what she said, but it was something like, "Don't you speak that way to my staff ever again. These are teenagers and you are a grown man. You do not need to be talking to them like that. I will not have you treating them that way. It's been twice now and you're getting banned after this." And guys, she sounded every bit of a mother who has had it up to here with her naughty kid, and the mom voice was in full force. He then meekly mumbles, "Yes, ma'am," and then suddenly has a very interesting phone call to make while he waits for his order. Well, it honestly took me all that I had not to clap and cheer. I love seeing restaurant managers stand up for their staff. And like I said, I have no idea what he said to those nice young ladies, but it must have been really crappy. Most likely some run-of-the-mill rude Dasher stuff, but I really hope it wasn't anything more sinister. And trust me, it would have really sucked to get banned from this restaurant, all because they have a great staff and orders pay very well. But if anything, it was probably deserved, because from the sounds of it, that guy sounded like an absolute jerk. Okay, I love it when managers stand up for their staff. In my opinion, the saying, "Oh, the customer's always right," it's like, no, they're never right. Customers don't know what they want, and if anything, they will be rude as a default. So the fact that this manager was not putting up with that crap for a second, in my opinion, is great. That's the mark of someone who should be in management, because if you have a manager that has your back, it quite literally makes your entire life so much easier. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My cousin has absolutely lost her mind, as she demands to know all of the information about the graduate programs I got accepted into, refusing to take no for an answer no matter what I say. Here's what happened. Okay, so I recently got accepted into 2 graduate programs. I wanted to share the news with my cousin cousin who helped me with the application, but I wanted to wait until I made a final decision. But apparently, she decided that my personal life was actually her business. From the start, I made one simple request. I would share my news when I was ready. I told her this directly. I even explained why, because in my experience, announcing things too soon sometimes backfires. Call it superstition, whatever, but I was clear. Well, she did not care. For weeks, she kept pushing, constantly asking if I had news, hinting that I must be hiding something. Eventually, I caved and I told her about one of them, since I wasn't ready to discuss the other one yet. But she did not believe it. Suddenly, she was playing detective, going behind my back to my sister, demanding to know what I was hiding. But after my sister shut her down, this set her off. I woke up the next morning to a series of very long text messages. Essentially, she was accusing me of hiding my acceptances. She accused me of being secretive, shady, and disrespectful for not sharing everything immediately. She said that because she helped me, she was somehow owed the news the second I got it. She also called my delay a slap in the face and a personal insult, claiming that I think she's jealous of me. Then, out of nowhere, she started listing all of her degrees and career accomplishments just to prove that she wasn't jealous. She said stuff like, I have multiple degrees and an awesome career, so obviously your tiny little grad school acceptance means nothing to me. And it's like, excuse me, who said anything about jealousy? She literally invented that argument herself. At this point, I was just staring at my phone, trying to figure out how we got from I just wanted to wait to a full-blown psychodrama. And now, somehow, I feel guilty. Maybe I should have just told her earlier. Maybe I could have avoided all of this. But seriously, if she had just respected my very normal boundary, she would have gotten the full story anyways. So was I wrong for not sharing my news with her sooner, all because she helped me out? Because right now, I'm honestly incredibly frustrated. No, this is so weird. Who in their right mind would walk up to you and be like, give me all of your information right now. I demand to know right now. By the way, I'm not jealous. I have a better job than you. It's like, whoa, wait a second. Let's take a few steps back. It is completely idiotic for her to pretend like you have any obligation to give her any information. She did not get you that graduate program. They looked at your credentials and not her. From the sounds of it, all she did was help you with the application. Like, that is literally it. She didn't do any other hard work to get you there. She just helped you apply and then tries to act like, oh man, you have to tell me everything. And also, when it comes to her being like, well, I'm not jealous, you are. Like, obviously she's projecting, and yes, she absolutely is jealous. She's pissed off because you got accepted into 2 different graduate programs where she probably never got into any. So yeah, you should not feel guilty at all. This lady's an idiot. And in my opinion, I really do think she sounds crazy because her behavior is definitely not normal. My wife cheated on me earlier in the relationship, and now she is literally flaunting it in my face. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things off, my wife cheated on me at the beginning of our relationship, which by the way was 5 years ago. I forgave her, but asked if she could remove him from her social group out of respect, and she fought it, but eventually agreed. But back in last December, she added him again. All she said was, I'm sorry this makes you feel bad. And then she went right back to her hometown for a couple of days and went completely AWOL, spent some nights out of my in-laws' house, and gave me some elaborate excuses. But I didn't buy it, so I confronted her. And it was there that she ended the relationship over text messaging. She came back home after a couple of days and said that she was going to move out. It took her 2 months to actually do it, and I ended up helping her move out and then moved out myself, since I didn't want to be in our old apartment alone. Now, we haven't filed for divorce yet, but we have been living separately for 3 weeks. Well, today she posted on social media a picture showing that she's traveling abroad with the guy she cheated on me with, and clearly she wanted me to see it. I feel like it's totally disrespectful. Needless to say, I gave her the stars and the moon for over 5 years of marriage, so I can't understand this move of hers. So please, I really could use some help or some perspective here. My current reaction is to have no reaction at all, and I'm honestly wondering if this is okay because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, I really don't know why you haven't blocked her yet, because this is crazy behavior. Your wife of 5 years clearly was never faithful, and she is showing you exactly the kind of person that she really is. And that's not fair for you. You don't deserve that. You literally have done everything you can to make your marriage work, only for her to turn around and just tarnish all of it overnight. Like, that really sucks. I don't care who you are. So seriously, block her and move on with your life, because she clearly had no interest in keeping that marriage going in the first place. Am I the jerk for not letting my dad's girlfriend walk through my room, even though my room has the front door to the house in it, and she always wants to go out the front whenever she's upset? Because right now I feel guilty and I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong. Here's what happened. I'm a 23-year-old male and I live with my dad, his girlfriend, and my youngest brother for the past 3 or 4 years. We recently moved into a new house around August of 2023, and my new room is like a mud room, even though we only use it as a bedroom for me, but it has the front door, which is fine because my family only uses the back door really, and I can just grab whatever food or packages are delivered and distribute them accordingly. accordingly. Anyways, my dad's girlfriend, let's call her Stacy, as well as my dad always get into arguments when he's drunk. We have a small house, so she has nowhere to go but outside when they argue or their closet. Well, sometimes my dad is on the back porch drinking with my uncles, and even though they will ignore her, when she walks through them to go around the house to sit on the front steps, she would rather go through the front door. Well, since the front door is in my room, Stacy needs to ask me, since this is a privacy thing, and because I would have to move a bunch of things and leave the door and screen door unlocked and open for her, even though she always does ask. Now, I normally let her do it, but a few months ago when this incident happens, she asked me and I just said no, because I just didn't want to have to move all of my stuff, and I was stressed out, and I wanted to have personal conversations with my friends without worrying that she's snooping around. And for reference, she loves to eavesdrop, and had stolen my sister's girlfriend's things when my sister and her girlfriend live with us. Also, I have anxiety of leaving the front door unlocked and open, which only increased with my stress state. Anyways, when I said no, she cursed me out and said I was being inconsiderate before storming out of my room and almost slamming the door. My friend said that I wasn't a jerk and that it was my room, so I have the right to say no, and it's just my people-pleasing personality making me feel guilty. And yet Stacy didn't talk to me for almost a month afterwards, and our relationship is still strained. So at this point, I'm internally torn, and I honestly don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. First off, I think you drew the short stick when it came to picking rooms in this house. Like, I don't know about you, but I would hate having the front door as my bedroom. Like, that sucks, and I really would not like that. But also, you have every right to tell Stacy that no, she can't just walk through your room, because guess what? It's your room. And from the sounds of it, it doesn't seem like she's a private person at all. So yes, I think you were completely in the right for telling her to go somewhere else, because that sounds like a very annoying thing to deal with. An entitled old jerk decides to treat me like crap at my job and out in public. So I decided to get some stupid petty revenge by getting back at her in such a way that truly matches the petty nature of her original problems. Here's what happened. Okay, so I used to work in customer service for a small town local utility. Back then, if you hadn't paid in full by the due date, you would get a late charge the next day with no grace period. We would, however, waive it one time every 12 months, but only if you would ask us. Most people were understanding, albeit upset, but every so often you'd get the people who couldn't believe the audacity. Now, this little old lady who we will call Valerie came in to complain about her late charge. At first, she was trying to be passive-aggressive about it, saying things like, "I can't believe you give me a late charge for paying 1 day late. I mailed it on time. Must have been lost in the mail. It's fine. I guess I'll pay though." So then the guilt stage slowly comes along. "I've never been late. I know I sent it on time. Is there anything you can do?" I then checked and we couldn't waive the charge because she already had one waived in the last 12 months. And with that brought on the entitlement stage. "I've lived here for so many years. I've never been late. You can do this for me one time. I've never had any problems with paying. Don't you know who I am?" But sorry, lady, we make an exception for you, then we have to make them for all the other customers. Eventually, she pays and then she leaves. Well, fast forward and I'm in line to check out at Trader Joe's. This was pre-COVID, but even back then, I like personal space and not being right up on the people in line. So the person before me moves up to start getting rung up, and I stay exactly where I was. A few seconds later, I hear, "You know you can move up, don't you?" And when I turn around, I see that it's Valerie. And it's like she's giving me so much snark for 1 foot of forward progress. A few years later, I was at the funeral of my great aunt, and the church isn't that big at all, but I also have a pretty big family, and adding the fact that she'd been pretty prominent in town for several decades, the turnout was quite large, and there were several overflow seats outside the main hall. I was seated outside with some elderly relatives, and when it came time to give the incense offering, there were several lines of people converging into a single file line. As I was guiding my relatives towards the line, I saw Valerie, and it was here that I decided to get some petty revenge. I happened to make it into the line right before her, and then I stepped in front of her and decided to let my aunt, my uncle, maybe my sister, and maybe a couple other family members also step in line ahead of me, and I made her wait behind us. And sure, it's stupid petty revenge, but considering the way she's talked to me before, I feel I responded in exactly the stupid ways that she's responded to me. Yeah, I like this story because it sounds like Valerie absolutely deserves this kind of treatment. I mean, I'm all about trying to get the best deal possible and like having some kind of complaint towards customer service, but it seems like instead of paying the fine that she knew she had, she decided to try and make you feel bad for her not paying her bill, not to mention her being a complete jerk in Trader Joe's. So yeah, I love the fact that you cut in line in front of her because that probably sent a very clear message to her, and hopefully she won't forget that anytime soon. An entitled jerk demands that I keep my cat out of the public park, even going as far as threatening to call the police on me since he is so sick of the cats in this neighborhood. Here's what happened. Okay, so there's a small park a few minutes from my house that I take my cat to for walks. Now, I always keep my cat on a leash when we're out, but this wasn't enough for a man who was there with his kid. kid. I got freaked out when he started yelling at me, demanding I leave and keep my dirty cat inside, or he would call the cops on me. All I could do was look at him in confusion. I then blurted out by saying, "Excuse me?" Well, the guy went on a tirade about how cats are destroying the neighborhood and how stupid cat owners were letting their cats run wild, killing birds, pooping everywhere, and clawing up trash bags. For the record, my baby is an indoor cat, and he hates being outside unless we're going out for walks, but I knew exactly what this man was raging about. There are folks in our neighborhood who have outdoor cats, and I see them walking around sidewalks and streets. Part of our town can't use trash bins since trash goes in the alley, and some alleyways are really narrow, so they literally just don't fit. The trash collectors just drive through the alleyway picking up trash bags and tossing them into the garbage truck, and sometimes cats get into them overnight and tear them up, leaving lots of trash in the alleyways. I'm guessing this man was upset about his trash being clawed up, or maybe he found cat poop in his yard. I'm not really sure, but it was still such an uncalled for attack, as well as extremely entitled to demand I leave a public park because I was walking my cat. He threatened to call the police again, and I snapped back at him, daring him to call the cops. I told him they would probably give him a ticket for calling in a non-emergency and wasting police resources. This seemed to finally shut him up, and he huffed and grumbled and left with his kid, but I'm honestly still astonished by this guy's attitude. Yeah, this guy's an idiot. He literally was contradicting himself from the start. He was literally complaining about outdoor cats, and yet here you have an indoor cat on a leash. This cat isn't running around all over the place. This cat is literally chained up and you're walking it responsibly. It's like, dude, you're literally pushing your blame on the wrong person. So good for you for standing up for yourself and at least telling this guy he's an idiot for even daring to call the police. Because in my opinion, I think he was completely out of line. Am I the jerk for cutting off my sister after we had a massive fight over my dad's will? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my dad won about $60,000 gambling 3 months ago. Not life-changing millions, but a nice chunk of change for retirement. And after this, he updated his will. My sister found out he's leaving his house to me and the cash to her, which is roughly equivalent value, and she flipped out, saying that she should get half the house too because she has kids and needs stability, even though she owns her own place already. When I pointed out that dad specifically set it up this way because I've been helping with his care for years, while she visits like twice a year, she accused me of manipulating him. Then she called dad screaming about how I've poisoned him against her. And you know what? My dad is devastated. He thought this was fair. I get the family home that I already helped maintain, and she gets liquid assets. Now he's stressed about causing problems and is considering changing it to make her happy. But I told her that she's being greedy and that this isn't even relevant yet since dad is still alive and healthy. She's now telling the whole family that I'm trying to steal her inheritance. So you know what? Yesterday I blocked her number. My mom, who's divorced from my dad, thinks that I'm overreacting and that I should just talk it out. But I'm so disgusted that I can't even look at my sister right now. So am I overreacting by cutting contact with her? Am I missing something here? Because honestly, I'm not sure what to do. Oh man, your sister's being super entitled. And the fact that she's trying to scream from the rooftops that you somehow poison him against her, like that is honestly so weird. And it really makes me think that she's showing her hand. Like she wants this to be a problem because she wants all of it when he passes away, even though he's not even dead yet. Like this guy literally is still alive and kicking. And your sister's going around and being like, wow, I can't believe this. So no, I don't think you're overreacting. And honestly, I would probably cut her off as well, because the way she's treating you seriously is not fair, and you don't deserve it in the slightest. My girlfriend cheated on me with 5 different guys, but now she claims that she is pregnant with my child. And even though I feel that I should reject her and push her away, this woman was still the love of my life for 3 years. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Me and my girlfriend had been together for 3 years. We met in college, and those 3 years had been some of the best years of my life. She was my first girlfriend, and in my eyes, she was the girl of my dreams. She was funny, confident, and incredibly beautiful. Our relationship was a healthy one, I thought, because we would go on dates together, and we wouldn't argue as much, almost never, and that made me think that we were happy together and we had no problem. Well, that is until the day of our 3rd anniversary together. I had planned to do an incredibly romantic dinner for her. Very cheesy stuff like rose petal candles and a romantic dinner in my apartment, and I had bought her some very expensive earrings, which I worked double shifts at my job to get for her. When she came to the apartment, she looked beautiful. She was wearing a very beautiful dress and I was in awe. But then I saw a little bruise on her neck, and at first I was concerned about what happened to her until I realized that it was a hickey. I then confronted her about it, and she told me I was just being a jealous, insecure child, which seriously deeply hurt me. So to make myself feel better, I asked her if she could let me see her phone, and that made her go absolutely crazy with insults. So many insults that I don't even want to mention them. It made me so suspicious, so I decided to take her phone sneakily while she was eating, and I went and locked myself myself in the bathroom and I checked her phone. Well, what I saw was horrible. She had all kinds of sketchy videos with different guys, and all these really spicy text messages and all this other stuff. We were in a 3-year relationship, and this is what she did to me. I was so broken, and I confronted her about it, and she instantly bawled her eyes out, saying how sorry she was, and how she regretted it, and that they didn't mean anything to her. I was so broken that tears didn't fall from my eyes, and I was just gonna leave her until she started kissing me from how sad she was. Look, I wish I could say I pushed her away and I told her to get lost, but she was the love of my life. I felt so vulnerable that I fell through temptation, and we ended up spending quality time together that night, if you know what I mean. The next morning, I felt so ashamed that I left, and I left her a note on the pillow saying that I wanted to end things and never wanted to see her again. I felt so dirty that morning that I honestly hated myself so much. Fast forward to some time later, and I went to live in a very cheap apartment, falling into a deep depression until one day my girlfriend found me. And to say that I was shocked was an understatement, because the only person that knew I was living in that apartment was my mom, so I legitimately thought I was going insane. Apparently, she had called my mom and asked her where I was to try and fix things, because as a side note, she and my mom were good friends. And so my mom told her. My girlfriend then basically started saying how bad she felt and how much she regretted what she did, and how I was her one and true love, which was absolute BS. I wasn't gonna take any more of this until she gave me the biggest news out of everything. She said she was pregnant and that it was my child. Now, I didn't believe her because she was a lying jerk, of course, but she clearly told me that all the guys she has been with behind my back all wore protection and that she was on birth control. But that night that we spent time together, I didn't use protection, so it pretty much confirms that it's my baby. Now, she said that she wants the baby and she wants to raise it with me. She also says that she wants to change and start couples therapy so that we can heal and be better, so that our baby could have a good family. And honestly, I really think that she means it. And right now, I don't know what to do. I love her and I know I shouldn't, but she was my world for 3 years. But at the same time, I keep remembering how she was with all of these men, all while we were together, and it just honestly destroys me. I hate her, but I love her at the same time. And I don't want our baby to be raised in a separated family. What should I do? Okay, there is no way the original poster is believing this lady, right? She slept around with a bunch of other guys and is now only going back to the original poster because she knows for a fact the rest of them are saying, no, I'm not taking care of this kid. Or they challenged her on being like, wait, is it really my baby? Because guess what? A DNA test will absolutely prove whether it is or isn't. So in my opinion, I would not take any of this seriously. I would demand a DNA test of some kind and happily pay for that because this lady is a lying jerk. She literally went behind your back in a way that I believe is completely unacceptable. And I seriously think it would be a mistake to welcome her back in any kind of way. My toxic entitled friend starts spreading false rumors about me in a way that is seriously damaging to my reputation. So I decided to get some revenge by quite literally ruining their lives in a way that they truly will never recover from. Here's what happened. So me and one of my best friends have been friends for nearly a decade. For reference, I'm a 22-year-old male and he's a 21-year-old male. We both share the same group of friends at a venue we both attended, but most of them were closer to him and had known him for longer than they had known me. We had, prior to this revenge, had a disagreement with him claiming I had lied about something, which he wouldn't even tell me about, as well as me calling him out for being constantly hours late whenever I arranged to spend time with him, and me finding out that he was leaving me out of group hangouts secretly. Now, I found out that after our argument, he went around the venue spreading rumors, and mind you, he could not find a scrap of evidence of anything. So I asked the staff of the venue that we attended to ask him to stop, but forgetting they were close friends of his, they made up excuses which they refused to tell me and banned me from the venue. And it was at this moment that my revenge began. First, I got in contact with a lawyer who drafted and sent him a cease and desist notice. He initially responded to accuse me of faking the letter, but was then sent a signed email copy and asked by the lawyer to advise to his position, at which point he left my lawyer on read. And it was on the next day that I found out he was still spreading rumors. So, unknown to him at the time, I took screenshots of years worth of text messages and was given the phone number for the Department of Fraud. As it turns out, I had collected information about him taking study assistant payments for an entire year while not attending class. This alone could mean that he has to pay back $10,000+ on top of a substantial fine as well as possible prison time. Secondly, I had text messages from him using, if you know what I mean, and distributing said illegal substance from the house that he rents with a few former friends. So I, of course, sent these to the police and had a long phone conversation with them about his substance use. Luckily for me, using some of my connections, I found the address and contact information of his landlord, and I'm arranging to send a detailed letter with all of the evidence in tow. Third, I had text messages of him admitting to drinking and driving, and he is now being watched by the police on weekends when he goes out, because on top of the drunk driving, he has lost his license prior due to speeding and causing an accident. Now, to add to my revenge against him, I felt the need to take revenge on the venue manager who ignored the harassment against me and instead kicked me out to spare his friend's punishment. So I found 5 people willing to testify that this manager uses the venue to buy and sell illegal substances, has told people to drink and drive in order to get more sales, as well as spiking sober people's drinks with alcohol. On top of recording 5 statements from different people and sending them to the police, I also filed a liquor complaint form and sent that to the appropriate authorities. Now, to add to this even further, I found out who lied on my former friend's behalf to get me removed and who was spreading rumors about me, and then I found screenshots and people willing to testify against them about the substance dealing and various other incidents. And now it's just a waiting game. And for those of you who think that I may have gone too far by getting him in trouble with the government for fraud or even the police for substances, I sent him a personal letter with a lawyer's statement saying that I would not proceed with charges of any kind should he apologize and tell the venue staff he lied in order to get me removed. But since he left me on red, I see that as a warning ignored, which really justifies why I'm choosing to take this route. Wow, I love this story because you know what? These people were playing with fire from the beginning. Seriously, these guys were not good people in the slightest, and they very clearly pissed off the wrong person. Like, what in the world was going on at that venue? First of all, I would never go there again if that really is what's going on there. Like, that sounds like a sketchy place and not a good thing in the slightest. So to me, I think the fact that you're reporting all these people, in my opinion, honestly is not a bad idea, because these people were very clearly bad-mouthing you in a way that was damaging to your reputation. And I truly think that you have every right to defend that no matter what. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My boyfriend overheard a comment made by my mom that he literally did not like, and now as a result, he is refusing to talk to me about it and is even going as far as saying that we're done. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, long story short, I was on my phone with my boyfriend and was going out to grab some dinner. My mom made a comment saying, "Hey, I know you have a boyfriend, but is there any cute guys in your classes?" And when I heard this, I was honestly so caught off guard by this question. Another family member was in the room, so I knew it was a question more so coming from them because they didn't know yet how serious my relationship was. And so I responded with, "Of course not." For some backstory, my boyfriend got cheated on a lot in the past, so he has very bad trust issues and gets really insecure that I'm going to be talking to other guys and all this other stuff. After my mom made this comment, I immediately knew he was gonna be mad. He went on pause on the class and literally refused to talk to me. For 20 minutes, I was begging him to say something, but he simply wouldn't. He finally said something when I was trying to get him to explain what he was feeling, and he thinks that since my mom made this comment, then I must have been talking to her about the topic before, which I definitely had not. I love my boyfriend, and with knowing how much he has a hard time trusting, I never want to make any comments to make him think that I want anyone else because I only want him. Well, he literally wouldn't talk to me and ended up going to sleep angry, and now I'm so overly stressed out and I can't sleep. I understand where he's coming from, but I also think that I don't deserve to be treated with disrespect over a comment that I didn't even make. Literally, the last thing he said to me before he fell asleep was him saying, "We're done." He is also bipolar, and so sometimes in arguments, he says things like this that he doesn't mean. Usually, once he's good again, he tells me that he doesn't actually want to break up with me and that he just gets in his head. But this time it's just different because usually I force him to talk about his feelings and resolve them immediately, but this time with him just going to bed without talking about it, I'm stressing out a lot and scared that he's actually going to want to be done. Fast forward and it's the next day and he still has not barely talked to me, and now he's at work, so I don't have any updates so far. So right now I'm honestly very frustrated and I don't know what to do. Okay, I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I think your boyfriend is being super immature. He is literally breaking up with you over a comment that your mom made, which you obviously don't reciprocate, and instead of talking to you about it, he's deciding to take the immature route and give you the cold shoulder, which by the way is incredibly toxic. There's never a good reason to do that, and that only makes things worse. And in my opinion, it kind of seems like he's wanting you to beg for forgiveness, as if you're the one that did anything wrong when in reality no one did anything. Like, does this guy even want to be in a relationship? It doesn't sound like he should be in one in the first place, especially if this is how he handles conflict, which by the way is not normal. That is like super toxic behavior and you don't deserve that. So I can only speak for myself, but I know if I was in your shoes, I would take him seriously when he says that we're done. I would pack it up and say, okay, I guess we're over, and I would force him to come to the table and figure this out. Because because anybody who uses that as some kind of excuse just to punish their partner, in my opinion, does not deserve to have a partner, because that is absolutely unfair. My husband keeps interrupting me and answering questions for me in front of our friends, and it's now gotten to a point where I am seriously so frustrated because I really don't think there's any solution to this problem. Here's what happened. Okay, when I have a gathering with common friends that are married, my husband usually interrupts me when my friends are asking about my adventure or my life in general. My husband doesn't really do any sports, and he does not have many activities or interests other than watching cooking shows and a couple of other shows on YouTube. He does not have a lot of common interests with men. He likes to mingle with women because he likes to cook. The problem is, when my girlfriends or friends are asking me about my adventures or even just my regular life, my husband will interrupt me answering and talks about my adventure, which he did not participate in, and about my life in front of me. For example, I love climbing, and I finally completed some big goal climbs. I was mingling in a party, and a friend asked me how my climb was. My husband, who does not climb or exercise, answers for me and said that the climb is easy. My friend even said to him in surprise that he thought my husband does not climb, and my husband just confidently says yes, and then continues talking without even realizing that it might be a hint. I then just leave the conversation. I mean, not only did he interrupt, but he also undermined my big goal and training for the past 2 to 3 years. This also extends about my regular daily life, stuff like kids' activities, restaurants that I tried, etc. For instance, my girlfriend will visit me and ask me about what I do for cooking, and my husband interrupts me and says that I don't go to the kitchen. I cook breakfast for my kids every day. I just don't cook for him because no matter what, he only eats what he cooks. I mean, he is very picky after all. I told my husband about this multiple times, and he says sorry, but he keeps repeating this. From my experience, my husband will never change, and instead, it's me who always needs to change. Also, he's not very self-aware at all. I told him to find more hobbies so he can relate and talk with more people, but according to him, he has a lot of hobbies. I don't tell him that it is related to this issue because then he will get defensive. If I gave him like an eye or hand signal, he literally just won't notice or understand. I mean, there are other things when I literally told him on the moment, please do not do this, and then he will still do it. And then later on, he will say that he misheard or misunderstood. I cannot come up with any solution other than I should just avoid going to parties with common friends with him. But what is the point of going to a party if I'm going to be hurt or pissed off afterwards? I am thinking I can try to tell him that we rotate if there is a friend gathering, but I'm just not sure what to tell my friends in the meantime. What should I do? Wow, your husband sounds incredibly annoying. The fact that he's interrupting you and like always talking over you and never letting you talk, like that would be super frustrating for me. I despise when people do this, especially about subjects they know nothing about. Like that's the part that would drive me up a wall. So hopefully some kind of solution can come about because of this, because this is really unfair for you, as your husband, in my opinion, is incredibly annoying. My idiotic job demands that I wear my work uniform at all times, causing me to literally pass out from heat stroke, resulting in me going to the hospital for 2 days. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened a few years ago, and I no longer work with this company because this story isn't even the first time where I thought my personal health and safety was taking the backseat to the requirements of this company. I work for a security company, and my assignment was the vehicle depot lot for the gas company. My duties were to sit in this aluminum trailer shack in the corner of the lot and monitor for suspicious activity. In Philadelphia, many of these areas were targeted by catalytic converter thieves. I was also supposed to make a patrol every hour to ensure the security of the site. Now, other than my patrols and to use the bathroom, I was not permitted to leave the box for any reason. My uniform was my usual long-sleeve button-up shirt and long pants, but also I was required to wear a boiler suit and hard hat for safety from things I might encounter on my patrols. Originally, I only wore my boiler suit and hard hat to do my patrols because it was July and the air conditioner in the box didn't work. However, my site supervisor came for inspection and threatened to fire me if I wouldn't wear the boiler suit and hard hat while sitting in the box as well. So I did just that. The end of July and beginning of August in 2022 was one of the worst heat waves in Philadelphia's history. On a good day, it was 140 degrees Fahrenheit plus inside the box itself, as it was made of aluminum and sitting in direct sunlight for the duration of my shift. Well, 3 days in, and I passed out standing in the men's restroom from advanced heat stroke. The gas company staff called an ambulance for me, and I was airlifted to the hospital. I mean, traffic in this part of the city, by the way, was notoriously terrible, especially late in the afternoon and early evening, and in this instance, every second counted. At the hospital, my body temperature was 105 degrees, and my pulse was a blistering 147. It took the doctors 2 days to get my temperature back to normal, as well as address all the damages the excess heat had done to my body. While I was was getting life-saving care at the hospital, my abandoned post was infiltrated by 3 men who stole the catalytic converters from 18 vehicles. The parent company was livid, and when I was inquired as to why I wasn't at my post when the theft occurred, my doctor at the hospital took the phone and informed them of my condition upon arrival at the hospital. In the aftermath, I was reassigned. The broken air conditioner in the box was replaced with a 40,000 BTU unit that required a separate generator to power. And a few weeks later, my security company lost its contract with the gas company after my replacement fell asleep in the box, while the thieves returned to steal another 20 catalytic converters. But honestly, I'm glad I got away from those people because they literally put my life in danger. Wow, this company did not care about you at all. They literally made you sit in a box that's made of metal in the middle of a heat wave and tried to be like, man, you need to stay there no matter what. And even after the theft occurred when you weren't there, they tried to make it seem like you abandoned your post and were actively trying to find some reason to pin this on you. And that is crazy in my opinion. Like, this is why people hate their jobs nowadays. They work for people that literally just don't care about them. They only care about their stupid converters instead of the person sitting in the box baking to death. So yes, I'm glad you don't work there either because these people seriously suck, as they did not care about your safety in the slightest. Am I the jerk for not following my husband's family tradition by naming our future son in the way that they demand it? Because right now I feel like we've upset the entire extended family, and at this point we don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my husband comes from a very traditional family. While we disagree with his family on many things, it has never really been an issue until now. I'm currently 8 months pregnant, and my husband and I couldn't be happier, as we've been trying at this for a while. Since I first found out I was pregnant, we've been discussing names for our child. In my husband's family, the tradition wants the child to be named after his grandfather. And basically, firstborn men in his family only have one of 2 names, James or Henry. My husband's grandfather was James, so his name is James too. My husband's father is called Henry, so our child should be as well, and so on and so forth. But my husband and I didn't really feel like calling our child Henry, and although it's a beautiful way to honor family members, we really wanted our child to have a name that would be personal, that would truly be his. So we chose another name, and decided to wait until after the birth to reveal it to everybody. Well, this week, my mother-in-law came to visit us and help us set up for the baby. She brought us some presents, amongst which was a bunch of clothing on which she hand-embroidered the name Henry. I said that it was nice and I thanked her for it, but told her that we wouldn't be naming our child Henry, which is something that we had already told her in the past. She then started insisting and saying that it was a tradition, so it had to be that way. But I explained to her that we would rather give our child a name that we chose, and that Henry could be his middle name. Well, she immediately went to my husband and started saying things like, "You're not going to let her do that to our family," and making it very dramatic, saying that I was breaking a tradition that went back hundreds of years. And honestly, I'm not even sure about that. My husband tried to explain that we both agreed on the name and all the reasons why we made the choice, but she simply wouldn't listen. She suggested that we name him Henry on paper as his legal name and then called him something else, but I thought that would be confusing for him and told her that he would be named what we chose. Well, she kept begging my husband and saying that I was ruining the family tradition, and at one point I lost it, which is partially to blame on my hormones, I think. And I told her straight up that it was our child, so we did what we wanted, and we didn't have to follow a stupid tradition. After that, she stormed out, and my husband has since received text messages from his father and sister accusing me of making his mother feel really bad and some other stuff that I don't really remember. I get the importance of tradition, and it can be really beautiful, but also I feel like that shouldn't be an obligation, and it's okay to change things. We won't change our baby's name because we're really set on that, but maybe we were wrong for not following the tradition. I'm not entirely sure, and I'm mentally exhausted by this drama, because right now I really don't know what to do. Okay, I cannot fully describe how much I hate traditions like this, where the family locks you into doing a certain thing a certain way simply because the family's been doing this for generations. I find that crap so annoying, and I don't blame you for breaking free of that, because you know what? You have it 100% right. This is your kid. You can name your kid whatever you want, and guess what? If you don't want to name it Henry, then you don't have to. These people cannot force you to name it something that absolutely is outside of what you guys want to name this kid, and that's final. Like, literally, no one has any other say in this. Like, why should you be locked into some stupid name, all because some very deceased relative decided to do this and it somehow caught on? So no, you're not in the wrong, and you're definitely not the jerk here, because the extended family you're dealing with are obnoxious. I mean, seriously, just look at what they're getting upset about. They're actually getting pissed off that you're not following along and naming this kid what they want it to be named. And that, in my opinion, is incredibly manipulative and a giant red flag. And that is not something that I think you ever should have to deal with. My friend's entitled mother claims that her daughter's behavior is all because of me, stating that I'm a bad influence and that I'm the reason and she's making all the wrong choices. But now, after all these years, she's now coming to me asking me to be a good influence in her daughter's life. And I'm honestly so blown away that things changed so quickly because the way she treated me in the past was absolutely ridiculous. Here's what happened. When I was growing up, I had two friends that were the same age. We were literally babies together and continued to hang out as young girls. One of my friends moved to another state, so I visited with her less often and became closer to the other friend who I will call Nina for the sake of the story. Nina was the oldest child and only girl and was extremely spoiled. Her parents, especially her mother, regarded her as the most beautiful and special child in the world. Her mom and my mom were friends, and her mom had hurt my mom's feelings by indicating that I looked weird as a child because I favored my dad. My mom was offended and didn't think Nina was all that cute either, but kept it all to herself. And by the way, she told me this later and didn't escalate it at the time. I was raised in a highly structured and disciplined home, so besides the occasional bad attitude, I wasn't much of a problem. I am an only child, but we struggled a lot. I dealt with homelessness multiple times growing up, as well as helping with caregiving for multiple ill relatives. I'm grateful to these experiences as they made me mature and grounded quite early. Nina, however, continued to be pampered and given whatever she wanted. The word no was foreign to her. But you know what? I didn't care, as it was none of my business. As we became teens, Nina started sneaking out of her house and messing around with boys. Her family is religious, so this was completely prohibited. Nina had told me that she had a boyfriend but nothing else, and at the time I wasn't interested in boys, especially not the oily, irritating ones that were around me. One day, Nina's mom called my mom very upset. She then informed my mom that I was no longer allowed around Nina or even welcome to their home. My mom asked why, of course, and that's when Nina's mom accused me of being a bad influence on her daughter. She said that Nina had been caught sneaking out of the house and that she had obviously learned that behavior from me. Well, my mom was infuriated and told her that I did not act in such ways. Her daughter's misbehavior was not my fault, but a result of years of spoiling and lackadaisical discipline. This argument went nowhere, and ultimately Nina and I weren't allowed to be friends anymore. I was devastated and angry. I never snuck out or acted out in such ways, and yet somehow I was the one being blamed, because to Nina's parents, she was perfect and couldn't possibly be at fault. It just had to be the ugly poor kid that taught the perfect and beautiful Nina this behavior. A couple of years go by and Nina becomes a teenage mom. Apparently, she admits to her mom that her behavior is her own doing, but of course, we never receive an apology or a phone call and only find this out later. Well, in present day, I'm around 19 years old and Nina has a toddler. And when my parents and I go to get our taxes done, we run into Nina's parents. They were happy to see us and very polite and friendly, and it was then that Nina's mom looks surprised when she sees me. She then says, "Oh my god, you actually grew up to be so pretty." And I think to myself, okay, thank you, I guess. Like, I was never ugly, lady, but I digress. My mom is visibly annoyed at the comment, but she still remains polite. She asked about my life and finds out I'm doing well, and I will be starting college soon. She asked for our contact information and we exchange numbers. Later, she calls and opens up about Nina being a bit out of control, and she sees that I have it together and wonders if I can be a positive person in Nina's life now. And when we heard this, my mom and I were dumbfounded. She can't be serious, right? She still had not apologized, but hinted that Nina had admitted to being sneaky for some years. My mom said it was up to me if I wanted to reconnect, but I owed them nothing. Now, I attempted to speak with Nina, but on our first conversation, she complained that her parents had purchased her a new car, but she wanted a truck. They didn't listen to her once, and she was enraged. She also said her grandma had purchased her daughter unattractive toddler clothes and not the luxury brand ones that she was accustomed to. Unfortunately, it was then that I realized we had nothing in common, and we never spoke to each other ever again after that day. Wow, what a spoiled brat, but also what an awful mother. Nina's mom is a piece of garbage for blaming that crappy behavior on you. I can't stand people who do that, who literally are ignoring the way their kids are acting, but still find some way to look around and be like, it's not my fault, it's that person's fault. Meanwhile, you're sitting there like, wait a second, I didn't do anything. Just because you're friends with her and associated her loosely in some kind of way doesn't mean that you are solely responsible for her behavior. That literally falls on Nina's shoulders and nobody else. So seriously, I don't blame you for kicking Nina to the curb. She clearly does not have her life together, and I don't think your involvement in her life is going to fix that in the slightest. An entitled Karen loses her mind after I tell her that her son is not allowed to smack the tank that's full of fish, resulting in one of the weirdest Karen meltdowns I've ever seen in my entire life. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've been working and helping at a small pet shop in town since I was 14 years old, and for reference, I'm now 20. I basically just helped around for 3 years, but after that, I've become an official employee. Even when I'm just buying fish food on my off days, I'll help out, and my coworkers would even ask me to help with customers when they were busy. I mainly got the job to get out and force myself to talk to people, since I'm extremely antisocial and also also autistic. And you know what? It helped a lot. I've been a fish keeper since I was 4 years old. And I'm not talking goldfish in a bowl. Think more like full tropical with live plants. And after a coworker was fired for stealing, I quickly became the fish room guy for the pet shop. Everything in there is my job and I absolutely love it. For those who don't know, banging on fish tanks is a big no-go. Almost every day, someone with a young child, sadly even adults, would walk in and tap or bang on the glass, and I would always ask them to stop, and they usually would. But unfortunately, that leads me straight to this fateful day where I meet a Karen and her child who truly blow my mind. This Karen and her 5 or 6-year-old boy walk in and go straight to the fish room. As always, I'm right behind them to help, and the kid wasted no time running to the tanks and being amazed with our large variety. Before I can even say, "Hello, how can I help you today?" this kid is full on banging on the glass. Like my coworker came in because she heard him doing it while he was screaming to his mom that he basically wanted everything. I politely asked the mother to ask her son to stop, since kids tend to listen to their parents better, but the following conversation took a turn for the worse. This entitled Karen looked at me and said, "Why? What is he doing wrong?" I said to her that banging on the glass stresses the fish out and can cause them to get sick. This Karen then looks at me with a scowl and says, "And?" So I continue and I say, "Well, it's not good for the fish. They could die if they're sick." This Karen then says, "Well, it's not my problem. Let him do what he wants." I then address the boy and I say, "Hi there, can you please stop? You're scaring the fish." And apparently that was the worst thing I could have done because this entitled Karen begins shouting at me. She screams out, "Don't you dare talk to my son like that." Now, it's important to note that I have permission by the owner to kick someone out if they're being disorderly. So I say to her, "Ma'am, if you don't stop yelling and get your son to stop doing that, I'll have to ask you to leave." This Karen then loses her mind. "Excuse me? You cannot talk to me or my son like that. Anyways, it's your fault he is still doing it. If you would just catch our fish, we would be gone by now." I say to her, "Ma'am, you have not even told me what you're looking for. How must I help you?" She then says something that honestly makes me crack up in retrospect, but she yells at me, "I don't know, you tell me." I say to her, "Ma'am, what are you looking for so that I can help you out?" But this Karen just responds back by saying he wants a fish. When I ask which one and how many they would like, she says to me, "I don't care, ask him. I'll be up there looking for dog food." The kid stopped banging on the glass by now since his mom was yelling at me, and I could see that he was a bit distraught. With the same friendly tone I've been using this entire time, I ask him what he wants and I get him 2 goldfish. The lady then complained to my coworker at the pay point about me, but it was there that she got a friendly last warning. But in the end, this entitled Karen was acting completely unhinged, and anytime I think about it, it honestly always cracks me up. Wow, I'm kind of surprised you even sold her anything at that point because my god, the second someone starts raising their voice, even after you have permission from the manager to kick them out, like at that point I would have been like, "Okay, you gotta go. Not only is no one gonna talk to me like that, but also you're literally ignoring the rules of the store." And it's like, seriously guys, in today's day and age, you're really gonna be smacking the fish tank? We've all seen Finding Nemo, but like, my god, there's no reason to keep doing that. Especially if you're watching your kid do it. Like, you know that's bad for the fish, but you're still letting it happen. But either way, you handled this way better than I would have, because that Karen would have been kicked out the second she raised her voice at me. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My idiotic supervisor refuses to get involved in a case that literally is going to get us sued, and only once the president of our company gets involved do they finally step up and try to do their job, resulting in her getting exposed for being a crappy supervisor, but also getting removed as a supervisor altogether. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work in human resources, and recently an employee called me with a rather serious concern, and this is one that I could not fix due to legal regulations. I explained this, and they said they needed the matter escalated to my supervisor, and they were considering taking legal action if it wasn't addressed properly. And I also want to say I'm sorry for keeping it intentionally vague, just to ensure the privacy and prevent repercussions for me. I talked to my manager while the employee was on hold, and they said they couldn't take the call to them right then, but to escalate it to them via the email thread this employee had also started. Well, I explained this to the employee, and they seemed reasonably happy, and I sent the email to my manager immediately after getting off the phone. A week later, my manager responds to the email thread, with the employees included, as well as adding me, and says they will have me handle this from here. Well, they never sent any other email. They never did anything to help out, and they just waited a week after it was escalated to them, and then immediately sent it back to me. I responded to the email without the employee included, and explained the situation again, reminding them why they said they would be handling it. They then told me that this was in my job description, and I had to handle this, as they didn't have any time. They also said that they never agreed to handle it. So with that bit of context, I decided to maliciously comply and handle it. I explained there was nothing we could do again, and that I couldn't couldn't provide them with any further assistance or escalate the case. Unsurprisingly, a few weeks later, we get a lawsuit. And guess who finally steps in to handle the situation? But guess what? It's too late. The CPO and the president were already involved, and I was able to provide the supporting documentation showing my supervisor refused to take over and prevent a potential lawsuit. Now, they didn't fire her, but she was removed from a supervisory position, so in the end, I call that an absolute win. Wow, I love it when supervisors are like, this is not my job and you're the one that has to handle this. This isn't your job description. See you later. And only once it gets really bad and they're like, wait a second, we're getting sued, and then one of the CEOs of the company gets involved, only then do they step up and say, oh, don't worry, I'll take care of it. And it's like, what are you doing? Where were you like a month ago? Not to mention the fact that she only wanted an email thread so she could say, I'm not taking care of this. I never agreed to this. Because she knows for a fact that because it's in writing, she can deny anything that phone call ever said. Like seriously, what an absolute scumbag. So good for you for having that email chain, because actually that kind of helped you in the end, as this exposed your supervisor in a way that they will never recover from. My entitled mother opened up credit cards in my name and said that she would pay them off once her retirement money came in. But even now, she is still racking up debt on these cards, causing me a lot of stress and a lot of worry, as I seriously now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, at the beginning of 2023, my mother opened 2 lines of credit under my name without my knowledge. And this is all while I was a full-time student, using them to cover bills and other expenses. Much later, I discovered both credit cards when I signed up for Experience Credit Report Services, and I saw them under my name. After I confronted her, she promised in both text messages and voice notes that she would pay off all the cards that she had opened in my name once she received her retirement money. Well, when the funds came in, she did pay off both cards. I then directed her to close the accounts since they were open without my full awareness. However, an argument ensued when she refused to close them, and she even said she would evict me if I filed an identity theft report or disputed any charges, which also, as a side note, I have documentation of her saying that. Now that I've graduated and am actively seeking full-time employment and a room to rent, I've noticed that she continues to rack up debt on these cards. Despite her earlier promises to pay them off, it's becoming increasingly clear that she may not follow through, and the debt is likely to keep growing. She justifies her actions by saying that she needed the cards to manage bills while I was a student, which I guess I understand. However, I have multiple messages where she explicitly agreed to pay them off, and all notifications and emails related to the credit accounts go directly to her and not me. As I plan to move out, I'm concerned about how to resolve this situation and free myself from the debt. Given the evidence I have of her promises to pay off the cards, what are my options for addressing this and protecting my financial future? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Oh my gosh, this is seriously so bad. Like, your mom committed fraud. I'm sorry, but that's exactly what's going on. You can't open up credit cards on behalf of someone else so that they get stuck with the debt that you're racking up. That's illegal. You can't do that. So if I was in your shoes, the only option I would even have is to report her, regardless of whether or not she evicts me. Like, seriously, that is so messed up, it's not even funny, because you do not deserve to be stuck with debt that you did not sign up for. And in my opinion, your mom deserves to pay for the crime that she is literally committing. A scammer tricks my brother into giving him $500 after he hacked my husband's Instagram account. So I decided to get to work by spamming him with so many spam emails that it allowed my husband to get his account back in a way that we truly didn't think would happen. And I've honestly never felt more satisfied about getting back at someone in my life. Okay, so Thursday night, my husband, my mom, and I go out to dinner with my brother. On our way home, my husband is driving and gets a message from one of his friends on Instagram asking for his help. They say they need help getting back into their account, and he said, I've seen that screen. Can you help them please? And I just say sure. Well, long story short, I accidentally fall for a hack on his Instagram, and he loses access to it. My brother, who for all intents and purposes is a bit of a moron sometimes, got asked by the person on my husband's account for $100. He sends the money, and then they ask for $400 more, and he sends that as well. And by the time he finds out it's a scam, he's down $500. And listen, I'm gonna be honest here. I'm both hormonal and bored, and this idiot used an email to contact my husband to get the code to get into Instagram. So at that point, I get to work. It started out with a scammer messaging my husband's fake Instagram last night. I play with him for a little bit over there, and he blocks the account. So I create a series of Instagram accounts and bother this guy for about 2 hours. When he blocks me on all of those, I decide to really ramp up the crazy. I message him via the email, and I let him know that this is far from over. He blocks me there as well, and when I should be sleeping, I painstakingly spend 6 more hours signing the email up for spam, religious groups, adult stores, literally anything and everything that would get him frustrated, and email him several times a day. And in the end, I didn't get to sleep until about 4:30 in the morning. Now, I don't think think we'll ever get the $500 back, and that's a lesson my brother will have to learn, unfortunately. But we did end up getting the account back. I guess the spam emails worked, and the scammer must not have been able to get the Instagram notification in time to stop my husband from logging back in and locking it down. And sure, it was a lot of effort, but I'm currently out of work with not much to do in my small town. So it was fun to mess with the guy for a while, and it was totally worth losing sleep to make sure that this got done. Yeah, this is seriously so stupid. First off, the brother in this story is an idiot. Anyone that says, oh yeah, I need some money real quick, I'm gonna call them up and be like, hey, what's going on? Explain your situation to me. Is there anything else I can do for you? Or something like that. That way I can at least have some kind of empathy for their situation and understand why they want that money in the first place. And for me, if I don't get any of those details, then I'm like, oh man, I'm so sorry, I'm hard up for cash, or I'll make any other excuse because honestly, I'm not gonna be scammed like that. So for the brother to fall for that is honestly so dumb. That should not have happened. Like seriously, across the board. He didn't think for a second to text his brother and be like, hey, do you really need that money? Or something like that, especially $100, not to mention an extra $400. Like, are you kidding me right now? What's going on? But I think you really did make a big difference by getting all those spam emails sent his way, because I guarantee you that smokescreen is the only reason your husband got his account back, because I am seriously convinced that that made all the difference. An entitled couple honks their horn at me literally the second after the light turns green, so I decide to confront them and humiliate them in a way that they truly were not expecting. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I was on my way to pick up my boyfriend from work after delivering my Uber Eats orders. On my way there, I pull up to a light and I'm the first in a single line of cars. The second the light turns green, the shiny new black Palisade behind me lays into their horn. So annoyed, I slowly make my way across, and about halfway in, I go back to normal speed just to let the cars behind me make it too. Now on the main road, I notice them keeping up with me but lagging behind a car space. We pull up to a light within 20 seconds and I decide to confront them. I put on a worried look as I roll down my window and they roll theirs down as well. Inside, I see just what I expected. What looked like a 48-year-old Karen, complete with a fake tan and crispy fake beach curls, and her aggressive mid-50s steel-faced husband. I look at him and I say, hey, are you guys okay? Is there an emergency or is someone dying? The Karen looks at me and says, no, it's just that you're driving like an idiot. I say to them, the light just turned green and you couldn't wait 2 seconds for me to move? Her husband says, you need to get off the road because you can't drive. I say, well, you need to learn some patience. The Karen then interrupts me and says, yeah, you're an idiot and your right blinker is still on. I say to them, yeah, I know, because I'm going that way, you idiot. Karen then says the dumbest thing possible when she says, go back to Chili's, even though she meant Chile, the country, or wherever you're from. I say to them, whatever, you're not worth it. You're both not even worth it anyways. From there, I rolled up my windows and put my music back on as I ignored them. And to be completely honest, I'm fed up with these entitled older people, so it felt good to jab at them for their behavior. About 20 more seconds, the light turns green and the SUV takes off to the next red. They seriously then try to cut me off, so I merge into the new right lane as I planned. But then they merge on there too, with a buffer car between us. And this guy, I mean, I'm sure he's probably gonna check me, follow me, or confront me physically if I actually turned with them. They're both at least twice my age. I slid back over a lane, back in the direction I meant to go, and I happily mashed my horn a bit and flipped them the bird as they were stuck going a direction they weren't even going. And it honestly felt so good to waste their time over it because their attitude was absolutely uncalled for. Yeah, screw those people. I hate people like that. It really drives me nuts. These people lay on their horn the second the light turns green. It's like, my God, have even a shred of patience. What's wrong with you? So I personally love this kind of revenge, and I think these people absolutely deserved it because their attitude was completely uncalled for. My best friends turned our living situation into an absolute nightmare, causing me to not only move out, but also get some petty revenge by taking everything with me that I ever brought to that house. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, when I was in my late teens and early 20s, I lived with all of my best girlfriends in a cute house. Shortly after moving in, I got more serious with my boyfriend, and things got hostile really quickly. As it turns out, he was a textbook narcissist and wouldn't let me go out with them anymore, and it created a huge gap in our friendship that heavily relied upon drinking and partying. I stopped getting invites to outings, and they would throw huge parties without telling me, bounce balls on the floor above my head, and they would sneak into my room when I was at work and to snoop through my stuff. Now, we were all young, and looking back, it was definitely a shallow friendship. Literally a situation where girls were being mean girls. Well, I finally got them all to sign a document releasing me from the lease, and I got a new place with my boyfriend as fast as I could, and I was out of there within a month. I worked at Home Depot, so I got a lot of cool or essential things for the house. But on my last day, I was determined to take every single item that was mine. I felt like the Grinch unscrewing all my light bulbs, taking all the toilet paper, the nails in the walls, literally anything and everything that I brought to the house, I took it back with me. And finally, for the best part, I licked every single piece of cutlery in the kitchen and put them away. To this day, I don't think it was enough, and I haven't spoken to any of those girls since then, but it brings me so much joy knowing that they would go into rooms and try and turn on lights, but there were no light bulbs within sight. Because trust me, these people deserved it more than anybody else. Okay, honestly, this has always been one of my biggest fears, especially when it comes to moving in with friends, or even the possibility of moving in with them. Because you're no longer just friends who see each other for a few hours and then head off and go back to your own space. You're suddenly on top of each other, and there's no way you can ever get away from that. So thankfully you got out of that house and you were able to have a new life with your boyfriend, because these people sound absolutely awful. And if I was in your shoes, I would not want to deal with that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for not personally texting my coworker that I wouldn't be riding with her to work this morning? Because right now she is freaking out on me, claiming that I've been using her and that I'm a bad friend. And at this point, I'm honestly super confused and I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I recently started a job where my company provides accommodation. So my coworkers and I live in the same compound. I'm in training with 3 others. And for the sake of the story, we'll call them Anna, Julia, and Ellie. And Anna and Julia are the ones with cars. Anna offered to drive me and Ellie to and from work, saying it didn't make sense for us to Uber since she was going the same way anyways. We offered multiple times to pitch in for gas, but she refused. So we'd occasionally buy her coffee or lunch just to thank her. She would text in our group chat in the morning when she was about to leave, so Ellie and I could meet her downstairs. We usually left at around 7:15 in the morning, and this arrangement worked fine for 3 weeks. One morning, Julia texted the group at 7 o'clock in the morning, asking for help and then offered a ride. So I replied by saying, sure, I'll join Julia today. And she said she would leave at about 7:20 in the morning. When I went downstairs, I saw Anna's car still parked, which was really odd. Julia called her twice and got no answer, and I called once and I got no answer. On my second call, she finally picked up. I asked if everything was okay since we saw her car was still there, and she just said to me, yeah, I'll see you there. And then she hung up. Minutes later, she texted the group chat asking if we had left, even though I had just told her on the phone that we had. And when I confirmed, she replied by saying, thank you for replying, which in hindsight felt really passive-aggressive. When she arrived at work, she immediately started yelling at me in front of everyone. She was furious that I didn't even text in the group chat and that she waited there like a stupid person. I told her that I had texted her at 7 o'clock in the morning, but she insisted that I had not. Julia then pulled up the chat to prove that I did, but Anna snapped back that I should have personally messaged her. She basically wanted me to say, Anna, I won't be joining you today. I will be going with Julia. Then she said to me, I was good while I provided Uber services, but the moment I'm not needed, I don't even deserve a text. Now at this point, I was shocked. She was the one who offered the rides in the first place, and now she was making it sound like I had been using her. I reminded her that she always refused gas money and that we often bought her coffee and food as a thank you, but she doubled down, acting as if I had disrespected her. The rest of the day, she ignored us, barely participating in any training, and when it was time to leave, she suddenly said, okay girls, I'm leaving if you want to join. Well, Ellie and I felt too uncomfortable after her outburst, so we just politely declined and went with Julia instead. It's been a week now and she acts normal during training, but avoids us during breaks and leaves without saying goodbye. She hasn't brought it up again, and honestly, I don't want to, because I don't feel like I did anything wrong. Yeah, she is completely the problem here, and in my opinion, that is so weird. You literally messaged her in the group chat like she was wanting. Like you communicated to her and said, hey, I'm going with Julia, and the chat log says that yes, you did do that. So for her to act like some kind of weird victim and be like, wow, I can't believe you used me, while also projecting this weird savior complex, like seriously, this is dumb, and I don't blame you for being like, I'm not riding with you ever again. Because in my opinion, the way she's acting is so weird, because the message was already delivered. If she can send some passive-aggressive, crappy remark by being like, oh, did you guys leave already? Oh, well, thanks for replying. Then you can absolutely also say, hey, I'm going with Julia, because that shoe could easily be on the other foot. You could turn around and be like, well, why didn't you message me personally? Why did you send it to the group chat instead of talking to me directly? Like, this is all so stupid. She's literally making a mountain out of a molehill. She even confirmed on the phone that she would see you there by literally saying, okay, I'll see you there, which implies that you'll see her at work. Like, what is happening right now? So honestly, I think the biggest silver lining here is that you now know that Anna is kind of crazy and she is not someone that you would ever want to ride with. Because clearly, if it doesn't go the way that she wants, she's not only going to play the victim, but she's also going to blame you in some kind of way, despite the fact that you communicated literally everything perfectly. An entitled Karen demands that she be allowed into the mall early, skipping ahead to the front of the line and claiming that she has important things to do and that she absolutely deserves to go first. Things were so weird that she even brought her own security guards that began barking orders at the mall security, stating that they had to comply and let her in. But fortunately, this Karen gets shut down in a way that is truly satisfying, making me glad that I was early just to see it all take place. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened yesterday and I'm still trying to process the sheer audacity of it all while also feeling very smug about the results. Okay, for a bit of reference, it is Ramadan, and like most malls here where I live, they open at 3 o'clock p.m. on weekdays and stay open until 3 o'clock in the morning, which basically means there's plenty of time for everyone to shop, eat, and do whatever else they need. But apparently that wasn't good enough for one ultra entitled Karen who thought that she was above the rules of the mall. I got to the mall at around 2:30 p.m. to grab a good parking spot before the rush to catch some shopping for my wife. A few other cars had already started forming a queue outside the parking entrance, with all of us patiently waiting for security to open the gates at 3 o'clock sharp. Now everything was normal. That is, until Her Royal Highness Karen herself rolled up in her big black pickup truck with 2 private security guards in tow. She pulls right up next to the security gate, completely ignoring the queue of cars behind her, rolls down her window, and tells the mall security, "Open the gate right now, I have things to do." The guard politely tells her that the mall isn't open yet, and that she needs a queue like everyone else. But of course, Karen doesn't take no for an answer. She says to him, "Do you know who I am? Do you see my guards? I don't wait in lines." She then literally waves at her guards, who step out with all of their gear, like they're about to escort her to the throne room, and they start demanding that security let her through. But the mall security, to their credit, stood their ground. Security said, "Ma'am, no one enters before 3 o'clock p.m. Please queue like everybody else." This entitled Karen then scoffs and pulls out her phone to record, demanding to speak to a manager. At this point, the rest of us in line are just watching in anger and disbelief, which is only further amplified due to lack of energy and just the sheer heat of everything going on. A few minutes later, the mall manager shows up, looking visibly annoyed. He walks right up to the Karen's car and, in the most CEO voice imaginable, tells her the following: "Ma'am, your guards do not dictate mall policy. If you want to enter, you wait like everybody else. Now take your guards and move to the back of the line." The Karen says, "This is unacceptable. I'll be calling my husband and reporting you." But just then, the manager cuts her off and says, "You can report me after you move your car." This guy was an absolute legend. And the best part is that Karen actually shut up and sulked off to the back of the line, with her guards looking completely useless. So the moral of this story is that even if you do bring your own goons, mall security will still not care in the slightest. And instead, you should respect people and try to not be a Karen like this one in the story. Okay, this Karen is an idiot. Like, she seriously had the audacity to go straight to the front of the line and pretend like she's some kind of hotshot, as if she's some kind of royalty that needs to be catered to right away. But it's like, dude, what are you talking about right now? This is not how this works. Just because you have security and are rich enough to have some doesn't mean that you're above the rules like everybody else in line. Like, that's really stupid. And it's like these guys are fully decked out in like some dangerous gear, if you know what I mean, and they're demanding that this guy opens up the mall. Like, seriously, this is not some high stakes situation. From the sounds of it, it seems like it's just some place to shop. Like, good lord, lady, calm down, it's not that serious. And in fact, the original poster, based on what they described, further explained that this literally is not like a war zone or anything like that, and there's no active conflict where they live. This Karen literally just had security to flex that she has money. So yeah, that Karen was completely out of line. She had no business acting like that, and I love the fact that the manager shut her down in the way that they did. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to drive 4 hours just so that my sister doesn't have to drive through New York City? Because right now my parents are really pushing for me to do this, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, my parents recently got my 19-year-old sister a new car so she would be able to drive at college. However, since buying her car, my parents have not let her drive from Long Island through New York City. One of them would drive her car a couple of hours, and the other driving another car. They would stop somewhere and then go home together, while my sister would drive the rest of the way to college through rural upstate New York. My parents said they were concerned about her driving past the city as she was inexperienced. At the time, I thought this would be a 1 or 2 time type of thing, and that they probably want to let her not only get used to the car, but also driving through New York City. Well, fast forward to today, and my dad was diagnosed with vertigo and is unable to drive at this time. So my mom asked me to drive with her instead. However, I objected. This will be the fourth time this has happened, and I would not be compensated in any way, namely gas money or literally anything. If this was the first time, I would understand. However, she has had her car for almost a year and drives frequently at school. I asked my mom if this is what my sister wants or if this is what she wants, and that my sister has a nice, new, safe car and in my opinion is more than capable of doing the ride. I feel like it's also a little wasteful with regard to gas and time. My mother responded saying that she is uncomfortable driving through that area. Then my mom asked if I had driven on the parkways with my sister, because if I have, I would not want her driving through the city. My parents both tried to get my sister to practice driving on parkways so she would be better or at least more comfortable doing so. However, she refused to practice, and my parents just didn't force her. And this is another reason why I don't feel responsible to help my sister avoid driving past New York City. Furthermore, I personally feel that if this is what my mom truly thinks, then my sister should not have received a new car. Additionally, I feel that my parents' plan doesn't provide for my sister to grow as a driver because there is no exit strategy so that she could eventually drive to school, including through New York City on her own. In the past month, my mom has always emphasized with me that one day she will not be here and I will have to do things on my own, claiming, well, what would you do if I was dead? However, I feel this sentiment was lost with my sister because she is the youngest. Also, I want to stress that it is my parents who want me to do this and not my sister. She wants to drive on her own but doesn't want to fight my parents on the issue. However, my objection to this request has been met with my parents saying, this is only 4 hours of your life. Do it for us and not for your sister. I personally feel the request is frivolous, it holds my sister back, contradicts the purpose of buying my sister a new car in the first place, and warrants some kind of compensation to some degree for driving 4 hours. So seriously, am I the jerk? Because right now I don't know what to do. You're not the jerk. This is so weird. You mean to tell me that your mom, the only parent that actually can drive, is not willing to make that drive but somehow says, oh, but you should do it? It's like, no, I don't think so. That's really stupid. Your sister clearly wants to make the drive, and that should be more than enough for your parents. I get that she's the youngest and they're like, oh, but our baby's driving into school. But for reference, the original poster is 22 and their sister is 19. You're not that much older than her. Like, that's only 3 years. And yet somehow they're okay with you driving it, but not her learning how to drive it for the first time. So no, this is so dumb. Driving 4 hours like that is a complete waste of your time, and this is something that your sister needs to do. And I just don't think you should be required to make that drive with her. My idiotic supervisor goes on a power trip, making ridiculous demands that truly don't make any sense. But today was her lucky day, as she finally got blamed for some of the stupid things that she's been doing on our shift, resulting in this lady literally never talking to me ever again. Here's what happened. So I worked as a night supervisor in a small private psychiatric hospital years ago. Department directors of individual patient units were on site from 8 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock p.m. Monday through Friday. So there was a bit of overlap in supervisory responsibilities between 3 o'clock p.m. and 5 o'clock p.m. Now, the director of the high security acute care unit did not care for me as a supervisor nor even as a human being. She made it very clear that she is in charge until 5 o'clock p.m. and not any time sooner. At every chance encounter, she had some snide accusation or remark to make about the night shift, whether real, perceived, or imagined. Nothing I ever did was correct or good enough in her mind. Now, one day, the evening supervisor traded shifts with me so she could attend her granddaughter's school play that afternoon. On that day, I received oncoming report from the nursing director, including ongoing construction progress as the facility upgraded its appearance. About 1 hour into the shift, I had completed oncoming rounds on the second floor and had just arrived on the first floor when a fire alarm sounded. The hospital operator announced a code red on the second floor south wing, which is opposite and 1 floor removed from the acute care unit. And as a side note, it was later discovered the construction workers accidentally set off the alarm. Now, it's important to know that nobody was to evacuate their area unless they were in imminent danger, told to do so by a supervisor, or ordered by a member of the fire department. At night, everybody was in their beds, so all staff had to do was head count and shut all the doors. During daylight hours, patients were up walking around the halls, they were in group therapy sessions, or with individual counselors. I instructed the charge nurse to gather all the patients and staff into a large day room, complete the head count, and remain there until the all clear was announced on the intercom. As I started to leave, the unit director entered and demanded to know why all the patients weren't lined up at the door. Well, stupid sleep-deprived me didn't understand that this was a rhetorical question. I started to explain that this was the safest way to keep track of this population, and they were in no immediate danger. Well, she didn't really wait for an answer, and she just started yelling for everyone to line line up at the door and leave the building. Just then, 2 firefighters arrived and asked me where the exit was to the outside courtyard. I then pointed down the hallway to where the director stood, all with 25 confused patients and staff in front of the exit. The lieutenant got about halfway to the exit, stopped and looked at me and asked, "What in the world are these people doing blocking the fire exit? Who's in charge here?" Well, I walked up to him, pointed at the director, and I said, "She is." And then I immediately turned to walk off the unit, listening to the lieutenant loudly tell her that they should be in a room with the doors closed, not blocking an exit. They went on to say, "We need to get outside, and you put these people directly in our way. The alarm location isn't anywhere near you. You have multiple barriers and firewalls that must be breached before you must leave." And this guy went on and on. At the next all-management meeting, the hospital administrator announced that in the future, directors will stick to managing their individual department issues. Shift supervisors were to remain in charge of global hospital operations, including managing emergency evacuation of patients during fires and other building threats. And you know what? I consider this a win because that director never spoke to me ever again. Yeah, I love it when people who are on a power trip get put in their place, because the person you're describing in the story is absolutely that. There's some power-hungry idiot who just wanted to boss you around, and that literally is not fair. Like, that really sucks for you. So good for you for explaining to that firefighter exactly who really is in charge, because that lady absolutely had it coming. Am I the jerk for telling my friend to stay in her lane when she crossed a line talking badly about my son? Here's what happened. Okay, I need to provide a bit of backstory here as it will be important to this story. I'm a 21-year-old female and I have a boyfriend who is 25 years old. I have a sister-in-law who's around the same age as my boyfriend and the same as my brother. My sister-in-law also has this friend who we will call Rose for the sake of this story. Rose is not her real name. Now, on December 11th of 2024, I found out that I'm expecting my very first baby with my boyfriend. And as all pregnancies go, as soon as a woman finds out that she's expecting, she will tell her close friends and family. I told my sister-in-law, and of course she couldn't keep her mouth shut and ended up telling Rose. Rose then contacted me and said, "Congratulations, I heard you're expecting a baby." So of course I asked, "Wait, how do you know that I'm pregnant?" As I literally didn't tell her, but she replied by saying, "Oh, your sister-in-law told me." I said okay and I let it go, as since it was my first pregnancy, I didn't want any complications. So fast forward to when I'm 15 weeks and 4 days pregnant, which is coming up on about 4 months of being pregnant, and I find out that I'm having a boy. I then went live on a social media app so that my other family and friends that couldn't make it could also see the gender reveal. After the party, I texted Rose to personally tell her that I was expecting a boy. Now, I thought she would at least say something like, "Oh, I'm happy for you, congratulations," or something like that. But that is not what I got. Instead, she snaps and in other words, pops off and screams at me, "I don't care what the F you're going to have, as it literally doesn't matter. I won't be able to see him anyways." I was quickly taken aback, and I responded with a simple, "What in the world do you mean?" She then puts in all caps, "You know exactly what I mean, don't play stupid." And I was even more shocked because she's never been this rude. Then after a few hours, it clicked that she exploded, saying that she won't be able to see the baby because of the fact that me and my boyfriend live 2 hours and 15 minutes from my parents and all of my close friends. It really hurt. But then she texted me talking about how I won't be a good mother and that she actually expects my baby to no longer be living in 48 hours after it's born. And when I read that, that broke me. I then snapped and texted her back. I said to her, "That's coming from someone who doesn't ever want to hang out with me, and when you do, it's only ever if I have money or if I'm driving my car. So please, just stay in your lane." I then proceeded to tell her that if she gets anywhere near my son, then I will personally have her kicked off all premises, meaning my parents' house or mine. Well, we haven't spoken ever since then, but it really leaves me wondering, am I the jerk in this situation for the way I handled this? Because right now, I don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk at all. Rose is out of her mind crazy. The second she said that line about your son is the second she needs to be cut out of your life permanently and forever. Like, this chick is insane. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would be sharing this text message chain with literally everybody, even if you're afraid that it would make you look bad in some kind of way. Like, I would be screaming it from the rooftops about how this lady said, "Yeah, your kid's gonna be passing away in 48 hours, and you're gonna be a bad mother." Like, dude, what is going on right now? That is seriously messed up and you don't deserve that. And I even think you could have been a lot meaner towards this lady, because her attitude was completely uncalled for and you did not deserve that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for publicly telling my former coworker that I don't like them and that I could not recommend them for a job they were trying to get? Because right now I feel like I did this wrong and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I ran into my ex-coworker, who we will call Sarah, at a bar while I was out with friends celebrating my birthday. We worked together for 2 years at a fast food restaurant, and I left this job in January of 2025. She was a shift lead and I've never liked her. I didn't like her management style or her personality. She came up to me at the bar and we had a 10-minute conversation, and I thought it was cordial and polite. She was mostly asking me questions about my new job, and she asked me if I would recommend her for a job at my new company. I mean, I got a job at a call center and it honestly was nothing glamorous, so I told her that I wasn't comfortable with that, but she just brushed it off with a bad joke. I ended the conversation and walked to the table my friends were at, and Sarah actually follows me. I didn't notice until I got to the table and she sat down next to me. My friends introduced themselves and I, without thinking, said something along the lines of, "I don't like you, can you please leave?" Now, I have autism and I could tell that was not the correct thing to say. Well, everyone seemed uncomfortable and Sarah was visibly shocked and upset. And my friends were also shocked and confused because they assumed that Sarah was a friend or someone I invited to the table. I mean, they had zero context of who Sarah is. After that, Sarah made a scene and told me that I was rude, a jerk, and a bunch of other things. She said that I embarrassed her, but she embarrassed herself by following me to my table uninvited. And yes, she knew it was my birthday. I do feel bad and know that I could have formulated a polite response, but she's a former coworker and an unpleasant one. I have many stories about her, but the worst example is that she made jokes about my autism and deafness, and she did this multiple times. She is fake nice and her friendship style is bullying other people. I don't know what Sarah wanted from me, and I wasn't going to hang out with her, especially not on my birthday. So seriously, am I the jerk for telling her bluntly that I don't like her? Because right now I'm not sure if I made the wrong move. Okay, on one side of this, I do see that you probably could have said it a lot better, but based on the things she was making fun of you about, in my opinion, it seems like she really deserves this. Like, some people just don't respond to you saying, "Hey, I can't do that for you," or giving them a soft approach of some kind where you're like, "Hey, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but this is how I feel." So in this case, it sounds like Sarah would be one of those types of people who needs the blunt end of the stick so that she can know straight up that no, you don't like her and that you don't want her around. I mean, she even followed you back to your table as if you owed her something, and even had the audacity to approach you in the first place as if you guys were buddy-buddy. But in reality, she is literally just a bully, and you know for a fact she's going to you for some kind of like letter of recommendation because she can't get it anywhere else, because I'm willing to bet that she's burned every bridge around her, and so she's going to you as probably a last-ditch effort to get anything done. So no, I don't think you're the jerk. I think you handled this perfectly, and in my opinion, the fact that she freaked out on you says everything you need to know about her, because that's the real person you dealt with for over 2 years, and I don't blame you for shutting her down in the slightest. Am I the jerk for telling my husband to book a hotel for us while we attend my sister-in-law's wedding? Because I know for a fact that his family is going to treat me like garbage, and I'm honestly not looking forward to it. Here's what happened. Okay, so my husband and I are going to be traveling soon to attend his sister's wedding along with our 1-year-old son. The plan was that we would land at our parents' place and attend one of the wedding ceremonies there. A few days after that, there's another wedding reception in my sister-in-law's soon-to-be husband city. My in-laws plan to book a few train compartments for the entire family, as well as an Airbnb for the 3-day stay there. Now, I really don't want to be in a confined space with my in-laws for that long, especially with my 1-year-old son. My in-laws and I used to be cordial with each other, that is, until my son was born. A few weeks after delivery, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law visited us to try and help out, but that's absolutely not what they did. All they did was just find any opportunity to hold him, regardless of whether he was asleep or in my arms, criticizing me for being too clingy with him when I would put my foot down, and basically started locking myself in my room with him, lament how poor my cooking was, and how sorry they felt for their poor son and brother who had to endure it. That is, until both my husband and I had had enough, and my husband hinted heavily that they had overstayed their welcome. Since then, I get hounded for not sending enough pictures and videos of him and how I dress him, and I'm seriously so grateful that we're far enough away that we see them rarely. I told my husband a couple of days ago that I'd rather we just fly from my parents' place to the other city and just stay at a hotel while we attend the second ceremony. My husband then said that that would make us look really snobbish, that he himself wasn't over the moon about the whole itinerary, but it was a family event and we should be with the family. The fact that he wasn't into it frustrated me even more, because we're literally like making all of ourselves uncomfortable for what? We got into an argument, his mother and sister's stay got rehashed, and I told him he was choosing to make me uncomfortable rather than potentially risk his family being offended. So honestly, am I the jerk for even bringing this up and saying that we should just get a hotel? Because right now I don't know what to do. Oh man, your husband's extended family sound incredibly annoying. They're the type of people who are more obsessed about your son than you, and they clearly just don't like you, and it's like they're saying it without really saying it. And that, in my opinion, is way worse than them just straight up saying, yeah, we don't like you. Because I would much rather have the blunt approach than someone pretending to like me, when in reality they're just being passive-aggressive and weird, while also doting over your son as if you don't even exist. So in my opinion, I think it's a good idea to get a hotel, especially because your son is 1 year old. You know for a fact that if you're stuck in in that Airbnb for 3 days, it's going to be a miserable 3 days. You are going to be so unhappy with the way they're going to be treating you that you're really going to be wishing you had some kind of accommodations to get away from them. And your husband's completely wrong. If they seriously think that you look like snobs and might be offended by you not being there with them, it's only because they don't have the opportunity to treat you like crap. Like, his family sounds like a bunch of bullies. They want to pick at you and poke at your insecurities and say all these terrible things, all under the guise of like, oh, we're just family. But it's like, if we are family, then why can't you treat me like family? Why am I instead treated like the black sheep of the family who can't do anything right? They don't see you as the mother of your child, but just like a caregiver. And they're treating you like, oh my God, you're keeping the kid away from us. But it's like, dude, this is my son. What are you talking about? The fact that they're trying to bother him when he's asleep or like, I don't know, in your arms, like that is super annoying. And I cannot imagine dealing with that for what, 3 days? Like, no, that's not going to happen. I'm not going to put up with that, and I'm not going to be in that situation. So no, you're not the jerk for asking for a hotel. Your husband's an idiot for not remembering the previous situation, and he is seriously acting so spineless. He needs to get a grip and say, okay, let me stand by my wife, because his family clearly treats you like crap, and that is not something you deserve in the slightest. Thanks for watching. Subscribe down below if you haven't already, and also please subscribe to Am I the Genius? I think you're going to love what they're making over there. It's a great channel, and you should definitely check it out. Everything will be linked down below in the description. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.